Thank you. By way of introduction, my name is Stacy Sigmund. I'm the chair of the Plan Commission. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. Copies of tonight's agenda are at the front table here in front. Feel free to come forward and pick one up if you'd like. I'd also like to ask everybody to take a moment to mute their phones if you don't mind. First item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the May 14th meeting. Does anybody have any amendments or comments on the draft meeting minutes?
Nope.
There are none. Can I have a motion for approval?
So
I move to approve.
Commissioner Pond?
And I signal.
Commissioner Hoffman seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. It's been moved and seconded, and after a vote, the minutes from the May 14th, 2026 Plan Commission have been approved. Tonight we have one item on the agenda scheduled for a public hearing. The order of business for each agenda item is as follows. Staff will provide us with an introduction and a staff presentation. The applicant will then make a presentation. After the applicant's presentation, I will open the public testimony portion of the meeting. If you have signed up to speak, you will be called by me to come up to the podium to do so at that time. After the close of the public testimony, the Plan Commission members will deliberate on the request, review the criteria for approval, review any conditions of approval, and the development standards. The Plan Commission's duty is to review application materials provided, take public testimony, hear from the applicant, and then discuss the matters before us as they comply with the Land Use Code review procedures. The Plan Commission acts as an advisory board to the Town Board of Trustees. In most cases, we review and make recommendations on land use issues within the town of Berthoud. Some decisions regarding preliminary plats and conditional use permits, for example, are heard by both the Town Board and the Plan Commission. Some decisions, such as minor plats, are decided by the Plan Commission. We have our staff in attendance tonight, and they're going to help us with presentations of the agenda items. They're here to help answer questions and to work with the Plan Commission regarding the criteria for approval as outlined in the municipal code. We also gain great insight from members of the public and the viewpoints that are presented during the public comment period. Please know that all input is welcome and very much appreciated. We're here to listen and to carefully consider all relevant information relative to the items before us for the public hearing this evening. If you wish to speak tonight during the public comment period of the meeting, you will be recognized by me. When you come to the lectern, please provide us with your name and please spell any uncommon name so we can make sure it's accurately reflected in the meeting minutes. We also ask that you give us your address. If you prefer not to give us your address, we simply ask you to state whether you are a resident of the town or not. We ask that you keep your comments relevant to the land use matters that are before us this evening and that you direct your comments to the members of the Plan Commission. Speakers will have 3 minutes to provide their public testimony. Please note that time may not be granted or yielded to another speaker. We understand that the issues before us tonight are important to many and involve feelings and emotions that may run high. We ask you to respectfully listen to everyone's presentations. You may or may not agree with them, but please do not interrupt with applause or any other kinds of demonstrations. Again, please direct your comments to the Plan Commission, not to the applicants or to the speakers. Again, if you want to speak tonight and you have not already done so, there is a sign-up sheet on the table in the middle of the room. With that, I'm now going to open the public hearing on the Tundra Flats Rezoning and Neighborhood Master Plan. I'll ask our planning manager, Ton Hildebrandt, to step to the podium, introduce the item, and provide us the background.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chair and Planning Commissioners. Again, Ton Hillenbrand, Planning Manager. So this evening, before we step into the actual item, I'm going to go over some just typical process slides, if you will. Since we may have guests in the audience, or more likely in this case, individuals joining us online this evening, this is important to share as an overview of the land development process. So there are 4 stages of a land use permit. The first is the application completes a pre-application meeting. So the intent of this meeting is to provide applicants with the insight that may impact their applications, to determine if the proposed use is consistent with the intent of the Land Use Code, establish the process for application submittals, and establish development review application requirements and expectations. After completing the pre-application meeting, the applicant moves into the second stage, making a formal application. So once an application is received, staff reviews it for completeness and then sends the application out to town departments and divisions as well as referral agencies for review. Generally, staff and referral agencies have 4 weeks to review an application from their perspective and provide the staff planner with comments to be sent to the applicant to address with the next submittal. The applicant addresses comments, seeks clarification, and resubmits. And most applicants have addressed comments in 3 to 4 review rounds and are then ready for a public hearing. Some applicants determine that the town of Berthoud isn't the right place for them at pre-app, and so they don't move forward, or in some instances the applicant may receive first round of comments and decide to withdraw their application for those same reasons. So once an application completes the review process, the application proceeds to stage 3, which is public hearings. And prior to the hearing, staff sends notice via postcards, publishes notice in the newspaper, and the applicant posts a sign on the property. And these notice requirements are detailed in our land use code. The public meeting stage will be reviewed in more detail on the following slide. And the fourth and final stage includes post-approval actions, such as, in this case, recording of the approved neighborhood master plan and rezoning map, and the applicant then moves on to the next step in the overall process, which again, in this case, would be site plan review. So the order of business for the public hearing is outlined on this slide. So staff will introduce the agenda item and provide a presentation, and that's where I'm headed here momentarily. And then staff's concerns during the land use planning process focus on how an application meets the intent of the comprehensive plan vision, the steps outlined in the development code, and specific application materials and processing, and incorporation of specific design and development standards. And following the staff presentation, the applicant will make a presentation, and once the applicant's presentation is complete, as Chair Sigmund pointed out, we will open the public hearing portion of the agenda item and accept public comments. The applicant will have the opportunity to rebut the comments made by the public, and then Planning Commission will deliberate and make a decision. So then once Planning Commission has made a recommendation, the planner assigned to the application will then represent that decision or the Planning Commission at the Town Board of Trustees hearing. So on to tonight's agenda item. This property is currently undeveloped. It is 6.6 acres and it's located north of Mountain Avenue between Meadowlark Drive on the west and Gateway Park Boulevard on the east, which is seen in blue shaded area on the screen before you. The property is currently zoned PUD, or Planned Unit Development. And the property is designated Suburban Business Character District on the future land use map, which is contained in our comprehensive plan. In addition, the property is located within the Mountain Avenue Avenue corridor, specifically the Berthoud West Character District, as denoted by the hatch marking on the map in front of you. When considering the Suburban Business Character District, keep in mind that within this district's umbrella, if you will, per the comprehensive plan, you then have relevant zone districts. And those are the C1, C2, and Suburban Commercial Zone Districts. And I'll get into a little bit more of that here shortly. And per the Berthoud Trails Master Plan, a proposed regional trail, as denoted by the dashed purple line, is proposed along the subject property's south property line adjacent to Mountain Avenue. And the Gateway Park neighborhood, or the Gateway Park Neighborhood Park, is located directly east of the project across Gateway Park Boulevard. The applicant is proposing the following 2 requests. Neighborhood master plan for a proposed mixed-use development, inclusive of 3,700 square feet of ground floor commercial space and 140 to 150 multifamily residential units, with a concurrent request to rezone the subject property from PUD or planned unit development to C1 neighborhood commercial. And as a reminder, and for those joining us this evening that are a little less familiar with the land use approval process, in this particular case, neighborhood master plan and change of zone are the first steps in the overall land use approval. This step, on average, takes about 4 to 6 months to complete, and following neighborhood master plan and change of zone, the applicant moves into site plan review, which includes completion of a development agreement. This step takes about 6 to 8 months to complete on average. And then following site plan review approval, the applicant moves into building permits, development agreement adherence, and inspections. So according to project records, the subject property was originally created in zoned PUD or plan unit development in 1999 as part of the Gateway Park Overall Development Plan, which is also known as an ODP. So the property was replatted several times in the 2000s, with the most recent replat taking place in 2017 as part of the Gateway Park Replat 3 as Tract A. The Neighborhood Master Plan is a conceptual design of the development required with a rezoning or major subdivision application that depicts the applicant's vision for the overall development, including zoning, transportation, pedestrian network, parks, open space, subdivision identity standards, and other amenities. The Neighborhood Master Plan is binding on a development, and all future platting and zoning actions must follow the approved plan, or they can apply for an amendment of such plan. So this project proposes 5 total buildings. One as a mixed-use building inclusive of that 3,700 square feet of ground floor commercial area and 2,000 square feet of outdoor plaza, and 4 multifamily residential buildings. This project would create 140 to 150 total residential units, which equates to approximately 21 or 22 units per acre, which is within the allowed density for the proposed C1 zone district. The exact unit number, building orientation, and on-site amenities, which include their open space, playground, etc., would be reviewed and confirmed with the next step, which is site plan review. While the Suburban Business Character District envisions this area as primarily commercial or business, the Berthoud West Character District supports mixed use, which in other words is commercial plus that multifamily residential component. While this proposed project would provide more residential units than commercial space, staff believes this proposed land use mix fulfills a need within the town and is consistent with the goals and the policy outlined in the comprehensive plan. And more specifically, the proposed project furthers the comprehensive plan achievable goal of housing diversity by providing a housing type not readily found within the town at this time, while also providing much needed and desired neighborhood commercial space. So this slide just shows a bit more on the potential location of subdivision identity and place elements, as well as open space elements and trail sidewalk locations. Final details of the elements, including exact locations, will be confirmed with the next phase or site plan review. So this slide reflects those staff and agencies that received a referral request and are those typically assigned a review for each and every neighborhood master plan and rezone application that we receive. In reviewing the application materials, each reviewing party is expected to either confirm they have no concerns or they provide comments and requested revisions based upon code requirements. And each subsequent submittal made by the applicant is then expected to address those requested revisions of that review. In this particular case, the application completed 5 rounds of referral agency and staff review, meaning all requests for revisions made by staff and referral agencies were adequately addressed by the 5th submittal, and therefore the neighborhood master plan and rezone were allowed to advance to public hearing. Section 6 of the Town Development Code, and I need to remind you this is our old or previous development code and not the newly adopted, as the application was accepted prior to our amendment of the development code. And that code states the town shall use the following review criteria as seen in your packet and on the screen, in addition to other applicable provisions of the code to evaluate the application. In order to approve a neighborhood master plan, the criteria must be met. And staff finds that the Tundra Flats request for a neighborhood master plan meet the neighborhood master plan review criteria. Specific details on how the project are meeting those review criteria has been provided in your staff report. So on to the rezone. So as already noted, the subject property is currently zoned PUD, which was approved in 1999 as part of the overall Gateway Park development plan. If the subject property were to remain zoned PUD, the approved ODP would remain in effect and would be applicable to the subject property. However, the PUD process has been phased out by the town of Berthoud and is no longer a preferred or relevant zone district. As the town has eliminated the potential for PUDs, and PUDs are generally, as we have found, not very clear on expectations, applicants are encouraged to change the zoning of their properties to reflect the vision outlined in the 2021 comprehensive plan. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from PUD, again, to C1 or neighborhood commercial. And the C1 neighborhood commercial district is intended to provide a development of mixed use, including that multifamily residential, retail, commercial, service businesses to support residential neighborhoods. And then think personal services rather than big box resources. And the C2 zone district, or the general commercial zone district, would be more in support of those big box, if you will. So the C1 is also a relevant zone district within that suburban business character district outlined on the future land use map. So again, it's one of the three that is supported within that character district. And additionally, it should also be noted that that zone district is also common within that Berthoud West character district. Rezoning is addressed through an official zoning map amendment. In Section 3 of the Development Code, again, the old version, states, for the purposes of establishing and maintaining sound, stable, and desired development within the town, the zoning map shall not be amended except when it addresses one or more of the criteria provided in your packet and on the screen. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning meets criteria 2, and the town has shifted away from planned unit developments, and the proposed rezoning will help create more consistency between the project and what is intended in the future land use map of the comprehensive plan. And staff find that the Tundra Flats rezone requests meet this criteria. And therefore, staff recommends Planning Commission make a motion to recommend approval of the Tundra Flats rezone request to the Town Board of Trustees. And with that, I am available for any questions you may have.
Well, I have a question. I know we are not at that stage at the moment, but when I saw the drawing of what's gonna be the layout, and it looks like the recreation parks are extremely small for 150 families, you know, potentially with kids. I don't see a lot of recreational space.
Yep. So any subdivision identity elements, which would be as well as your, actually I think that's majority of them. So that would be like the playground, the community gardens. Those are specific elements that the applicant is choosing from a list within our development code. And in certain instances, our development code does stipulate or mandate a minimum size. So for instance, the plaza that's associated with the mixed use building, that is one of those elements, and it's required to be a minimum of that 2,000 square feet. So again, we'll look at all of that to ensure that it's meeting those minimums when they submit for their site plan review application. Right now, the intent of the neighborhood master plan is really to acknowledge that they understand that that is a requirement, and that those are those general areas in which they believe at this time where they will be located. However, when you get to site plan, that's then when we also require our construction or civil drawings at completeness. And so once they really sort out, their circulation, egress, sidewalks, any easements, when they really know hands down what is existing, they'll then be able to sort out what fits and what's necessary, what's required. So we will take a much closer look at that at site plan review.
Please.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. How long does it take to get through 5 rounds of referrals?
So I think I listed our staff report. It's really depends. So staff's review is very structured. So once we receive an application and we deem it complete, and usually deeming an application complete, which means just making sure that they have all the submittal requirements and that they're sufficient enough to send out for review, that can take us 7 to 10 days. I think we average a lot less than that. It then gets scheduled for review with our referral and internal staff for 4 weeks.
Okay.
So there's a 4-week turnaround on that. And then once staff receive that review period closes, planning staff then compiles all those comments. We do any follow-up that's necessary. So if there's a comment we receive that even we find confusing, or maybe there's a conflict with our code, we'll seek out that clarification prior to giving those comments to the applicant so that then we can provide clarification. We take an additional 2 weeks. So it's a total 6-week review each submittal. And so that's very structured. We do our best to stay within those boundaries, and we do a pretty good job at doing that. So then those comments are given to the applicant, and they can take whatever amount of time that they would like to make those revisions, or however much time they need. Oftentimes when they're more complex comments, they take a little bit longer. And so as you go through each review, some of those comments just become more minor, and so they become quicker. So it really is dependent, but our structured staff and referral agency review time is 6 weeks. And often, I think more often than not with an application, I think we see a turnaround in anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. And because most applicants, of course, are not wanting to waste time and want to move their project forward.
And Chair Sigmund, if I may, for Ms. Helen Brand, the first submittal was August 14th of 2025. So from mid-August to mid-May.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other initial staff questions before we ask the petitioner to come up and do the presentation? Thank you.
Thanks for the energy.
At this point, I'd like to welcome the petitioner to the podium for your presentation, please.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Don Ryan with the LAA Design Group. We are the planners, landscape architects, and architects for the proposal. Our offices are at 116 Inverness Drive in Inglewood.
And I'm Matt Notter. I'm with Roach Constructors. We're the petitioner. We're based out of Greeley. We've been the part of the development group on this going back to 1999.
So Tom did a good job, thorough job of explaining this. One thing I wanted to emphasize with the project summary here is that this is an infill project. The existing infrastructure around the property is in place, so it is an infill site. I also wanted to emphasize that the proposal will provide landscape areas, buffer areas, gardens, greens, plazas, additional walks, a playground, and required stormwater detention pond. And these will be part of the elements and part of the open space network for this site. Addition to that, the site includes 3.8 acres of open space, or 57% of the site will be essentially landscape areas and walks. The remaining 42% comprises the footprints of the buildings, the 5 buildings, and the parking lot. So we have a significant amount of open space and buffers for the 6.6 acre site. This is an aerial of the existing conditions, and this is a relatively recent photo, so it has everything that's there today, including the new office building that's in the Gateway Park commercial area there to the east. So these are the existing conditions. And then we wanted to highlight some of the proposed conditions. So some of the projects that have been approved and that are planned in the future, this might be something what Mountain Avenue looks like. We have the West Side Crossing at 287 west of our property. The Berthoud Arboretum is down the street to the east on Mountain Avenue. There's a proposed apartment project that is between us and the Arboretum that has not come any further, so we have it sort of faded back very far because that's not as imminent as these other projects like West Side Crossing and the Arboretum. The Gateway Park Commercial continues to add buildings, and so that's an active commercial area. The Legacy Park across Mountain Avenue to the south is also a project that has approvals. We understand that they're starting their construction further south with residential, but eventually that project will move toward Mountain Avenue based on its approvals and the plats that are in place. So we just wanted to give an idea of what is happening along Mountain Avenue and put it in context to our project. In addition, we wanted to look at the existing and proposed land uses around this site. What we have is a mix of uses with the commercial areas in red, the attached residential in orange, the single family residential in yellow. And then we have open spaces, parks, and buffers in green. And then what we did is we left unknown or future proposals in black and white. So just so you understand the context and the details that we're trying to show here. What we see is that this site provides a transition between all these uses. In fact, it's a very good transition from Mountain Avenue to the north, where we have our proposal of multifamily residential and mixed use that transitions into attached for rent units that are on the other side of Tundra Avenue. And then it transitions to single family. So we don't have a condition where we have multifamily right up next to single family. We've got a good transition there. On the west, we have a transition to commercial with an open space buffer provided by some detention ponds between the commercial and our proposed multifamily. On the east, we have Gateway Park, and then unknown what might happen beyond Gateway Park, but another infill site further to the east on Mountain Avenue. So we see this as a good transition of land uses between single family and the commercial and the attached residential that you see on this map. And here, this indicates the identity plan. And I apologize, there's one little thing that's out of place because we had to create a PowerPoint here. But what I wanted to highlight here is that in addition to the requirements, we're adding some additional depth and dimension to what we're providing. The buffer area between the multifamily and the for rent units north of Tundra Avenue is a 30-foot buffer minimum. So there's a 30-foot landscape buffer between the proposed parking lot and Tundra Avenue that will provide a buffer between those uses. In addition, there's an existing property that is not part of our proposal between our lot and Mountain Avenue currently. That provides an additional buffer between our site and Mountain Avenue so that the closest building to Mountain Avenue is going to be 85 feet away from Mountain Avenue. And it goes up from there to over 100 feet away from Mountain Avenue. So there's a good buffer to Mountain Avenue along the south as well. In addition, we'd have 60 feet minimum of a buffer area between the mixed-use building to the east and the Gateway Boulevard and the Gateway Park across the street from Gateway Boulevard. So there's 60 feet or more of a buffer where actually in that area it's quite large. We anticipate many of the amenities and the activity that we could provide for the 150 units to be something that would also be a benefit to the community, not just to this site, but shared amenities for the residents and for the public in that area, in that 60-foot buffer. I also wanted to point out that the locations are, well, they're a little offset on this. I've got we have another slide that might show it better, but the yellow dots are just indications of where these could go. In our final site plan, we will be identifying in detail where the playground will go, where the gardens will go, where the greens and the plazas will go. But in addition to the buffer areas and the 57% open space, we have court areas between the residential buildings. That's where we see opportunities for amenities for the residents that might be more private, such as plazas or fire pits or something like that to allow for some amenities, outdoor space for the residents. So Tom mentioned this, the housing diversity plan that was completed in 2025 for Berthoud. We believe that this project fills a need that was stated in that plan. I think you probably know the facts better than I do on this, but just wanted to emphasize that this will provide much needed diversity. We also believe that the project is right-sized and it's a good location. It's not a large multifamily project. It's up to 150 units. And so we believe it to be right-sized and to be in the right location to provide this need. One of the takeaways in the study from the community engagement was about multifamily and how many residents are open to multifamily. We want to ensure that the maximum height reflects the community's character, and there are concerns about the structures obstructing mountain views and the location of those next to single-family neighborhoods. So we believe that this location meets those criteria. It is not next to single-family. It is on a active corridor with Mountain Avenue, and we believe it's the right size and the right location for this proposal. Some of the public benefits that we've identified include that this is, as I mentioned, an infill development. It makes good use of vacant land and underutilized land. There are existing infrastructure and utilities all around the property, so it's a project that allows for development without extensions of utilities or additional costs. In that way, maximizing the existing infrastructure. It supports walkability and biking. It will essentially fill in a gap that is currently in the system in terms of sidewalks and trails along Mountain Avenue. Diversifies the housing options, as I mentioned, and supports the findings of the Berthoud diversity study. Has the potential to boost the local economy, essentially providing more residents to have access to the commercial that's nearby and that's proposed. An increase in tax base for an infill project that is currently vacant and not doing that. And it fosters community cohesion. We believe that this will create a vibrant, inclusive neighborhood with shared public spaces, and it meets or exceeds the requirements of Berthoud's codes and guiding documents for this site. So the next steps, if approved, we will bring this forward to site plan review, and that means compliance with the codes and guiding documents that are in place, including the Mountain Avenue Overlay District, which in my opinion is a very good document. So it has very strong design aspects to it that we will have to follow. We will have to meet or exceed. The character district design guidelines for this part of Mountain Avenue and the landscape design guidelines. All of those will have to be adhered to and either met or exceeded. The on-site improvements, just to reiterate, include sidewalks, landscaping, gardens, plazas, and the playground. Along with the site plan review will be a development agreement for potential off-site improvements that include improvements to crosswalks, intersections, and completion of a trail. So with that, we are available for any questions.
Any commission members have any initial questions for the applicant?
I do. So in the presentation, there was a lot of discussion or descriptions about the residential component. And it sounds to me, as I'm like looking at everything, there might be some commercial underneath, maybe, one row of apartments on the top. However, I'm having a hard time visualizing kind of how there's going to be more residences compared to the commercial spaces. Given that part of town, looking at the comprehensive plan, it seems to be more geared towards a village center that's more kind of commercial restaurants, outdoor breweries, kind of that walking component, similar to the downtown area, the historic downtown, but with a modern twist. So I'm a little concerned that it feels more residential, which is cool. But, as a business owner, I'm going, but what about the commercial? What about that livelihood? We're missing the commercial description.
Understood. Do you want to talk
Yeah,
about the history
absolutely.
about that?
We've been associated with the property since I think '96 is when we acquired it, I believe. And of those 30 years, I've been a part of the property for the last 18 or so. We have taken a lot of different attempts at commercial on this, and we've been met with significant community resistance, very significant, traffic concerns, CDOT concerns. We just can't find a way to meet all the requirements of the geography, of the on-site detention, and of the neighbors, and of the Mountain Overlay District now, and find any commercial that actually works out there physically on site. So we kind of shifted gears to say, all right, what can we fit there that integrates some commercial? And so we kind of landed on this more small boutique commercial feel, kind of that garden level coffee shop, independent business feel, instead of the only other users we've presented to the town or that have come to the town have been the Family Dollars and AutoZones. And we went down the road with Dairy Queen for a long time, and nobody could get a fit on this as a traditional commercial development. So that's why we shifted gears, and admittedly, this is much more residential. And we think that's where the neighborhood wants it to be. That's where the traffic and some of our limiting constraints want it to be. I mean, really, any more commercial, and we start to have some significant problems with traffic and off-site improvements that can't be accommodated. So that's why we made this decision. We've been trying to do something with this tract for the better part of 15 years now, and this is the best fit we found so far.
So could you still envision like an outdoor brewery, but with apartments on top kind of a thing? So are we, in terms of like what that vibe is of what the comprehensive plan has, described of the, I'm thinking, downtown Boulder, over by where they have Whole Foods, I believe, and there's a Barnes and Noble. But not that, because not big box, but like just east of that, I want to say they have, these buildings that have apartments at the top, and then underneath, they have, the art galleries, and they have, the boutique kind of shops kind of side by side, but it's a very vibrant, it's still walkable in terms of, but the parking is still going to be behind, not on the street, kind of thing.
We looked at that. We've looked at a couple of varieties of increasing more commercial. Commercial increases our parking so much and our on-site detention so much, and just constructability concerns. It just dwindles down the unit count too far to make this pencil out for us. That's why we went the approach we did. And we haven't had a lot of success in our own developments with mixed use in terms of, say a restaurant user wants to come in down the road and they're venting. There's always going to be an apartment above it that's complaining about it. We've never been able to find a good fit for that in new construction. So that's kind of what's driving this, is more market-driven forces and then those site constraints. And quite frankly, there's a lot of commercial coming in around us that's more conventional to the market. The single tenant, triple net users, the AutoZones of the world, the Ziggy's coffee shops of the world, that's where everybody's building commercial. We don't have a lot of success with that small footprint kind of multi-tenant feel.
Yeah, so how about the parking places, for example? Because I see you're going to have 140 apartments on one side and then a few on the east side. Let's say 2 cars per apartments. Do you have more than 300 parking places, given the fact that you want to attract people in the commercial places and coffee shop or whatever? That's my number one question. And also, you speak about having a coffee shop or a small restaurant. I don't see on the map, and probably for the next steps, but places where you can have an outdoor dining place or having your coffee or something like that, just to make it vibrant. Because if it's just a store with an entrance, it's not a. Then you don't create an environment to attract people over there.
Yeah. I'll address the second part, the parking counts. Don probably has better feedback on, but for what we're visioning is putting the commercial on the east side of the project, and that was very deliberate. Our first conversation with the town, we're having it on the west side because it is more conducive to some outdoor patios. It's going to be overlooking detention ponds, all of our amenities, and Gateway Park across the street.
Yeah, but
And-
you have commercial places on the entire length from east to west.
No, we're only envisioning it on our east apartment building at this point, on the lower level, 3,700 square feet. There we go. Out to the east there.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe you could clarify, because I was
Yeah.
under the understanding that the 4 rectangles are pure residential. There's
No,
no
we're
first
only
floor
envisioning the
commercial.
commercial
And
out
the
on
mixed
the
use
east.
is only in that final 5th building.
Oh, okay. So the 4 big buildings are only residential.
Correct. We can't get a way to justify the traffic into the infill part of that project for any commercial uses that wouldn't be disruptive to that neighborhood. And we just don't have enough ways in and out to support that.
Okay, so that explains the small 3,700 feet of commercial.
Correct.
So it's mainly residential with a little bit
Correct.
of commercial. Okay, I see.
So I guess my only concern with this is, does that change what the mountain overlay concept was looking for? Because when I'm looking at it, and I have a hard time, I'm a very objective person. My background's actually math. So I'm going, but if I'm reading, it's saying no cookie cutter facades that lack, articulation, that kind of thing, I'm going, are they going to look cookie cutter? Are they going to look, is it going to have the vibe of the downtown where it looks like little different buildings? What is that going to look like? And then, when you read the description in terms of what that vision was, it would be a walkable commercial district with opportunities for shopping, employment, and other services. And so I'm having a hard time fitting this concept into the plan. And I love it. And I think, oh my gosh, if there was commercial on the bottom floor of each of these residential buildings, I feel like it would fit better. I could see that working a little bit more in terms of the concept. However, I understand the rational challenges in terms of the parking and all those kinds of things, and how is that going to work. But I'm just concerned it's going away from that old downtown feel, new birthed, vibrant feel, character that I've been seeing in that comprehensive plan and kind of looking everywhere. So that's my only concern in terms of moving forward with this. But if you could convince me otherwise, I'm here
In
for
an
it.
early on conversation when the Mountain Overlay District
Yeah.
had just been adopted, the way it was presented to us when we were first kind of floating this idea was we want it to look like urban infill apartments if it's going to be apartments. Make it where you don't see any of the parking from the street side. It's all walkout right on, patios right there onto the trails. And that's kind of what we tried to model after. There was actually, early on, it was an apartment complex in Broomfield we looked at, where they had put the apartments right up against the road, like little 5-foot buffer yards, to kind of hit that urban feel to it. We can't do the mountain overlay stuff for the most part here, because one, there's that Gateway Park Master Association tract between us and Mountain Avenue. That's kind of an unfortunate relic of the original plat. That's also consumed by a right-of-way that CDOT has from 1998. Plus then the trail requirements, interconnectivity, and our landscape buffer requirements. And there's a CDOT drainage easement through there. We can't get that close to the road. So we can only get such an urban downtown feel when we have to stay 85 feet away from the road. It's going to feel much more like an open space park, if anything, I think.
And if I may, Chair and members of the Planning Commission, this is the conceptual footprints, and site plan requirements include facade. They'll have to show how they are meeting the heightened brick requirements that were just passed in November of 2025 for the Mountain Avenue Overlay District. That articulation, not only on the wall, but the varied setbacks for the buildings and the site-specific elements of the site plan itself. will have to be adhered to with that site plan. So I just want you to know that, yes, there's a lot of the design component that's missing with this. It's not a required element for this application.
And I don't want to cut this short, but I feel like we've moved maybe into a little bit more of a deliberation. So if we have any direct questions for the petitioner, I'd like to still entertain those. Then I'd like to take a pause, open it up for the public testimony portion, if there is any, and then we can come back and amongst ourselves kind of talk about how it meets or doesn't meet the criteria. Specifically, I would like to hear from our planning manager who did the review and their staff's kind of assessment on why they felt it did or didn't meet.
Sure.
Those.
I have one question for the developer. So it was highlighted in both the staff's presentation, your presentation, that 50%, 57% of this property will maintain open space. But to me, it looks like from the map, most of that is parking lots.
Yeah.
So what percentage of, and that really does not fall within the definition within the comprehensive plan of open space.
I think the 50
My
something
Not
percent
looking
was
that
not
way?
including parking. The
Yeah.
48%, I think it was, or 42,
42.
includes the parking.
Yeah.
That was on one of the slides here, the breakdown.
Right.
Okay.
So we have over 50% of open space that on the plan are the green areas and the sidewalks and the plaza. The parking lot, which is gray, and the buildings that are white, they're the smaller percentage, the 42%. Everything else is open space. It's actually a very large amount of open space for
Okay.
such a small site.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. You're just looking at the map and it looked like
Well, open space.
a lot of, not open space, but. Yeah, that's probably the only question, and I might probably save my other comments for the next page.
Great. Any other questions? We'll have an opportunity, obviously, after the public hearing to come back, public testimony, come back, ask more questions, clarify anything. Anything before we move to that, though? All right. With that, I'd like to open the public testimony portion of the meeting. Is there anybody who signed up to speak or anybody? No. All right. Seeing none, I'd like to close the public testimony portion of the meeting. And we will now move to the discussion among our Plan Commission members. This is an opportunity where we can ask staff to clarify anything that's in the report, and again, ask the applicant any sort of questions or their insight on different things. So who would, and then, after we ask some questions, obviously we will be moving, we have a page in front of us, which is the criteria, and keep in mind, this is gonna be two different motions tonight. We're gonna have one motion relative to the master plan, a second motion relative to the rezoning, and the criteria is different from one to the other. So once we've had a chance to kind of, again, continue our discussion, get our clarifications, then we'll move to these criteria worksheets that you have before you to determine if we feel like it's met that. Maybe I'll ask the first question if you don't mind, and then everybody goes. So, Ms. Hildebrand, can you give us a little bit of a background? Because I think there's some commission members that are struggling a little bit with, does this really meet our master plan? Does it meet the Mountain Avenue corridor? Is this the intent of what the community wanted to see? In your staff report, you've outlined that you believe it does, and I think staff as a whole does. So maybe you could sort of explain that to us.
Absolutely, gladly. So I would start with, so the comprehensive plan is a vision document. So it's always good to remember that it is not a rigid document, that this is this overall vision that, yes, was accepted with lots of community input that was then adopted by our town board of trustees. So there is some ability and flexibility along the way when we do receive applications. That said, so somewhat to what the applicant had stated, we understand that some of the constraints that exist on this site when it comes to the traffic impact study and the potential that if this was fully commercial, that at some level it can't meet the needs of solely commercial. And so we looked at this and we really evaluated the consistency with our comprehensive plan, and we've had a lot of internal conversation saying to you all, because when you look at the document, and as I had noted in my staff report, we very much acknowledge that based upon the language within the comprehensive plan and the Mountain Avenue overlay, that it could be construed that it's primarily commercial and that this proposal is not primarily commercial. It's a small percentage. So in our conversations early on in our pre-application meetings with the applicant, we started these really early, and we encouraged that there had to be some portion, however they could make it work, of commercial. Knowing that, again, there's some complexities with access and parking and, of course, drainage and the commercial development directly to the west and the capacity of that intersection and other intersections. And then again, looking at the development that will be coming to the south, which is Legacy Park. And Legacy Park proposes a substantial amount of commercial adjacent to Mountain Avenue, as well as mixed use. So they also likely will be doing residential over a commercial component. So taking that all into consideration, we encourage the applicant that to do their best to make it work, some level of neighborhood commercial. And so looking at the comprehensive plan and the goals and the vision of the comprehensive plan, like in the housing diversity, understanding that there is a significant need for this level of diversity in the town because we don't have multifamily at this point, very limited. As multifamily apartments. And so we felt that with that and the fact that they worked with us, they were very flexible and amenable to staff's comments. They did what they felt worked for the site based upon what we know of the traffic impact studies and drainage. And we felt that it was in alignment with the comprehensive plan, although it's not primarily commercial. And it's that complexity, too, of looking at the bigger, this is one piece in a much larger puzzle, and understanding that over time, the town has grown in ways in which that 1999, I don't think anybody could have expected. And certainly our comprehensive plan is newer, 2021. But we felt that it was still meeting the intent. That said, you all don't have to agree, of course, with our assessment. And if you feel that more commercial is appropriate or it should be all commercial, that is certainly your choice to make, and to make that recommendation however you see fit to the Town Board of Trustees.
If I can ask for a point of clarification, how long had the applicant been working with the town to understand the expectations before they submitted their application in August of 25?
Oh man, without looking, I do know it had been a significant amount of time. I think there were early on conversations about this property because, again, as the applicant pointed out, when I first came to the town, we were processing an application for a Dairy Queen. And there's some complexities with that. And then we had, I think, two other potential commercial users who came in, and again, they inquired, and then based upon requirements, drainage, parking, access, for various reasons, they moved on. So I know the conversation started, very early on, and then we had a pre-application meeting, and there was this, again, I think we had a formal pre-app and then some other follow-up conversations. So they've had a lot of conversations with the town. They've had a lot of discussion, and they have been flexible with staff and really trying to find a way.
Something, because I'm not trying to short circuit the thing. I mean, I agree with the comments, and it's part of what I've struggled with. I think it would be helpful as we continue this particular discussion, because I think it's the essence of what we have before us tonight is, does this meet it? Can we pull the slide that was up, and I know it was part of the applicant's presentation, that shows this contextually with what else is proposed around it? Because I think it's really critical for us to think about how this piece of the puzzle fits in with everything else that's been approved or is on the books, right? So to know whether we think this fits.
It was in your actual presentation, right? And not one of the after? Okay. This one? Oh. Mm. It's stuck.
Because again, I think now, sorry, I'm just, while you're finding it, I think there was some understanding maybe with some of the members that the commercial was going to be throughout in
Yeah.
some portion of the residential buildings. And so I think looking now that there's some clarification that the commercial is just on that far eastern side, looking where that falls relative to the other commercial that's planned and
Yeah,
approved
which
in the
explains
area, I think is important.
the pretty small 3,700 square feet.
Yeah. It
I was wondering where is that, because it cannot be at the ground floor of all these apartments. So
Yeah. Could
So-
we actually, there's one that doesn't have the coloring. It's more just what's been, maybe one slide back from this. Sorry, at least that was the one that was visually helpful to me. This one.
And Madam Chair, if I may add one point of clarification in those conversations we had early on with the applicant. So initially, some of the conversation was to put a component of commercial on the west side of the property, which would have been adjacent to West Side Crossing. However, after those earlier conversations, thinking about the complexity of that intersection and knowing what turn lanes are required for West Side Crossing and termination of turn lanes, and if people were going to West Side Crossing and into Tundra, that may create conflict. And so early on, we had just simply suggested that maybe moving it to the opposite corner would, in that regard, be beneficial. So again, to give you just some of the background on those earlier conversations with staff.
Could you maybe go into a little bit of details about Legacy Park, showing as mixed use, but I think in the map, in the comprehensive plan feature land use map, it's is it urban residential? Is that correct?
So it's currently zoned urban residential. So urban residential does allow mixed use, a variety of mixed uses. Legacy Park is currently in the process of final plat approval. They are in their initial or first phase. So this portion that you pretty much see here is being subdivided into tracts. So they are not currently focusing on this portion of that development in their first filing. So it's pretty much south of what's on the screen here is where they're primarily focusing some multifamily residential, small lot residential, and then their park component, which is pretty much right down the center of this development. Yeah. But the intent there along Mountain Avenue, I know especially on the more western portion, would be more of a big box potential, or an anchor with smaller, commercial units. But we don't have any specifics at this point in time as to what exactly they're proposing. And then they do have a significant drainage at that northeast corner there at Mountain Avenue and North Berthoud Parkway or South Berthoud Parkway. And again, there'll likely be some mixed use component with commercial on the first floor and multifamily residential above. But again, we don't know. It could very well change over time depending on their phasing. But it has been zoned UR or urban residential on that portion.
Yeah, I remember we had that in front of us probably 9 months ago, a year ago.
Yeah, the preliminary plat was probably about 6 or 9 months ago.
Is it the one with the big park at the center going south?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So my biggest heartache is what the current residents are looking for or had planned, right? So there are so many things that we've seen in the town where, like, 5 years ago, we wanted the water park, all these things. And then all of a sudden it's like, that kind of thing. A lot of the things, the people that are more vociferous than others are saying, stop building residential, stop building the homes. We're growing too much. We're growing too fast, kind of thing. And a part of me is like, but we're growing. We need more homes. But so then part of me then kind of sides with them on this one, and that if there's already going to be apartments over there, they're proposed, not to say it's going to happen.
Correct.
Right? So we can't say that's going to happen, but is there already going to be, if we envision that following through, do we really need apartments here? However, the nuance with making it commercial is difficult, right? So are we almost going to be re-envisioning this west side of Berthoud as more residential and then boom, big box, right? And so that would be my only concern. Is that really what people anticipated in town versus do they want actually the small boutique stores? Maybe, you know, instead of those apartments, those buildings were boutique stores, but you just park on the back side, but maybe there's sidewalks where you can still walk through town. You know, there's still that walkability factor where you could walk on a sidewalk from 287 all the way down to First Street and hit up all the stores. So to me, I'm just kind of thinking outside of the box in terms of what residents might be saying in regards to this particular proposal. But then again, some people are saying, but we need more housing, which is true, we do.
And I would remind Planning Commission that it's really looking at, again, your guiding documents. So it's looking at the comprehensive plan. It's looking at the Mountain Avenue overlay. It's looking at your land use code and what is permitted within the zone district. It's not about predicting. It's not about trying to decide what the community wants. They've vocalized what they wanted through those documents. So the task at hand is determining, is this proposal consistent with those master plans and with the requirements of the development code? So I think keeping on track in that regard is where you need to look for your guidance.
And also, if I may, Gateway Park Apartments, they have not come through any land use approvals yet. It is just proposed because it's under development review. And they have not proceeded to hearings for various reasons.
The thoughts?
Well, honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed with the size of the commercial part. Looks to me that it's a little bit like, okay, we're gonna give you a little bit of commercial, but the rest will be 3 stories apartments on a place where you have, I mean, again, the proposed Gateway Apartments. So again, same question: is it what we want in Berthoud?
Commissioner Bond, any thoughts?
Well, I think my opinion is that the guidelines that the comprehensive plan outline I feel strongly about them, that our role is following those guidelines as opposed to deciding that I expect this or that or the other to be on somebody else's piece of land.
I'm going to go back to this end. Commissioner Terrazas.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I share the sentiments of Commissioner Gudis, right? I think I'm struggling to meet, and I can certainly sympathize with the developer's quandary of trying to solve this, and this town's not an easy place to make everybody happy, and you know that, you never will. But I feel like we're on the very fringes of meeting the comprehensive plan with, we just put a little block of commercial to say, oh, that's mixed use, now we're good. And, you know, I think I certainly understand the traffic impacts, but I think the other concern I have is within our growth management area, Berthoud is limited on the number of commercial spaces available, both within the zoning and the comprehensive plan, and just lots that don't have anything on them, that are still dirt, right? And and of those places, we have very few, and we just went through this with Revere, not myself, but the town, of those gateway properties and taking advantage. Because one thing, as I don't remember who it was, somebody mentioned that, you know, we have had quite the boom in housing, and can certainly agree that there's a need for some multifamily housing, but we also have a need for commercial. And you know, as tough as it may be to attract those here for various reasons, I'm not sure I'm in favor of trying to just give up on that in this case. being that, this is very close to 287. It's a prime commercial space. We don't have a lot of commercial here. And, there's a lot of houses that are still going to be here. And, one of the prime commercial spots available left, I'm not sure that 3-story apartments along Mountain Avenue is best served with and just one mixed use building on that property. So I'm really struggling. I really see the quandary here, both from the staff level and from the developer. And I don't know that I have that answer. Otherwise, I'd be a developer. But I feel like it's a stretch at the moment. Let's leave it at that.
Commissioner Butis, anything more you want to add?
No, I completely agree with everything you said. You said it so eloquently.
I'm going to add a little bit different perspective, I guess, from my standpoint. Is one of the things, can we leave that one up? Sorry. Well, just because I know the plans also talk about transitioning, right? And that we want higher density residential in the core of our downtown because we do want it to be walkable, right? So I think we've had some pushback and some concerns that we make sure that we have. So I like when things are transitioning from one use to the other, that you're bringing residential and maybe a little bit higher density residential into that center core of retail, because that makes it, we're not going to walk from Heron Lakes to the downtown area. But I think people in these apartment buildings or condo buildings, I don't know if they're going to be rentals or owned, certainly would. When I look at the volume of commercial for West Side, and then, of course, we have the Gateway Park and everything's happening in the downtown. I don't know that I think Mountain Avenue as a walkability. I mean, let's face it, most people don't walk very well. They do more in Colorado. But I really don't think anybody's going to park at West Side Crossing to shop and then go all the way down into the downtown area, following along retail, and then come back again to the car. We tend to be a population that people get in their car. They're a matter of convenience. They'll kind of walk in a smaller area. So this kind of being in the middle of two, I sort of feel like from one hand, you'd have it's a good buffer to the residential areas to the north. You know what I mean? It's a good transition, I should say. Maybe buffer area is the wrong thing. And it kind of gives the West Side Crossing, there's a strong group of residential units that could walk to West Side Crossing, including these, or they could go the opposite way and head into the downtown. My personal opinion on if we are only going to have a small commercial area, I like it on the Gateway Park because I think you could do something more interesting in that building than you could next to the bigger commercial area. It's a pretty unique spot that I could see something kind of special because it does overlook the park and that sort of area. So I think I could see kind of a fun commercial use going into that. All of that said, I respect and understand that this seems a bit of a token commercial area as opposed to what's reflected in the plan. So I think as we get to the criteria here in a few minutes, it's up to this commission to decide whether we feel that criteria has been met. We'll kind of systematically go through that by step in a minute. Is there any other questions that commission members, before we start that deliberation and looking at that criteria, have for staff or the applicant? I did one more before I relinquish the microphone. The right, you called it a buffer area in front of this. That's right of way, correct? There's a setback, but that's CDOT owns that. This is CDOT right away. And in theory, that the road could always get expanded or lanes could be added or something there.
Yeah, so for clarification, as the applicant pointed out, this one's a little bit, it's a bit odd, and unfortunately, I don't think any of our images show it. But between essentially where the red line is on the screen now, there is a sliver between that red line and Mountain Avenue, and it's kind of this narrows down. That is owned, I believe, by the HOA or Gateway Association, but it's also encumbered by a drainage easement as well as then right away. So there's a lot of complexities, and I do know, and maybe Luke can provide clarification, CDOT is involved at some level with the use of that, as well as that association. And so the applicant has no control over that piece of property.
It was kind of presented as an additional buffer area, and I'm trying to understand who owns or what could potentially happen in that. As
Yeah.
we're treating that. Is it a buffer area? Is it perpetually going to stay a
So-
buffer area? Is that something CDOT could expand onto? That's kind of my question is what could or couldn't potentially happen in that?
I do believe CDOT could expand on that.
I believe our expectation is the developer will need to find out a way to make Mountain Avenue meet the ultimate roadway section for that area. So it will need to be widened. They are proposing a right turn lane. It will need to be widened on the north half to accommodate a future curb and gutter. Well, maybe not curb and gutter in this area. That's not as essential, but at least bike lane, travel lane, and then half of the median. And that will be our expectation for the site plan.
Okay.
And so for clarification, no, it would not be considered as part of that buffer. And generally, if they are proposing buffers to meet a requirement, it must be on their property. And typically, required setbacks aren't considered a buffer unless you're meeting the components or elements of what defines a buffer. So a buffer would include berming, landscaping, trees, shrubs. In this particular case, the trail may weave through that buffer area. But yes, that would not be included in the buffer.
Can I ask two questions of the applicant? Can you explain again, I think you mentioned that when you looked at another property in another town south of here, I can't remember which one you said. Did you consider moving the apartments, flipping it and putting the parking towards, and I think you spoke a little bit about that, but can you talk about that again? And then my second question as you're walking up is what got you to the number of units? And I think you went into that a little bit just from a penciling out standpoint. Like, did you consider maybe putting one additional commercial building, like one on the west side, one on the east side with the housing in between?
Yeah. So to address the first question, I believe the mountain overlay character district precludes us from putting any parking or transportation along the road. So we tried to meet that by keeping all of it, all the buildings as close to the road as we could.
Okay.
The unit mix, anything under 250 to 350 units is not a really commercially viable high density apartment complex. We don't have the room for that. The number of units was dictated by how much we can actually fit on the site. So when LI worked through how many acres we have, the constraints of all the CDOT easements, right of way, everything that we can't build on, plus the parking requirements, that's the best we could do. As we started looking at adding more commercial into it, we just don't have the traffic availability there to do it.
Sure.
Too much commercial is a much heavier traffic impact, and our traffic engineers worked tirelessly with CDOT for 3 years now on this. And CDOT keeps kind of moving the goalposts on us, but they keep telling us any more higher density, you're already at like failure rates on these two intersections we're relying on, and we just can't add more traffic. When we worked through a commercial aspect on this, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was pre-COVID, we had a Family Dollar that was under contract on the corner. We had staunch neighborhood opposition from not only the community aspects of it, but also the traffic concerns. We had that come up again when we tried the Dairy Queen and AutoZone users in there. Everyone said, where's this traffic going to go? This is a residential neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was the number one complaint we got. So it wasn't a particular financial result. It's really just a density result of what we can do.
Do you have comparisons within the traffic study of how many average cars per day this would produce as opposed to if that were 100% commercial?
I'm sure we could.
We don't have that.
Not
but
specific.
We
It's
could
easy to
create
grab.
it, but we don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could probably
Yeah.
chime in on that a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe we can
'Cause I
hand
have
it off
a
to.
study about
And then, just for the record, I wanted to make sure I state that when I said it's a stretch. By no means I mean staff is trying to stretch that. Just clarify that.
Well, okay, so the traffic study itself doesn't say the actual rates. But just for a general overview, that 3,700 square feet generates 200 trips. And the entire rest of the subdivision generates an additional 954, so maybe 15% of the entire development's traffic is from that small commercial sliver. So if you imagine that multiplied over the entire width of the area, not including that commercial also requires a lot more parking. I think it's like 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet, and apartments are maybe one and a half spaces or something. Commercial generates a lot more traffic in the peak hours and overall daily, and then
Yeah, but how many? I mean, 3,700 is pretty small, honestly. How many boutiques or cafe or restaurant can you have on that area? I mean, 3,700 is probably a house, a little bit a moderate house.
If I can add to that, not to interrupt, but we figure this is going to be a 2 to 3 tenant space. 1,500 probably the average size. We see a lot of coffee shops like to be around that 1,200. The quick service restaurants
so
like
it's
to be
two commercial places.
Yeah.
How can you attract people to come? I mean, for these two commercial places. I think. I mean, to me, and I'm going to stop with that. But looks to me that, I mean, there's just a little bit of space for commercial, and the rest are apartments. And I'm not very comfortable for that.
You know, just to be very, very candid, if I could sell this to a Starbucks and a Raising Cane's, I would in a heartbeat. It'd be a great move for us. We'd be out of here after 30 years. We just can't get it to work. We've tried, and this is kind of our option of last resort, to be honest.
What do you mean by can't make it work? As far as you can't attract
So,
them? Or
no, I can attract them. There's market demand, I think. We were able to get AutoZone and a couple other small, more Class B and C type retail users pretty easily without a lot of marketing, but we couldn't accommodate them on site. I mean, we spent 2 years with Dairy Queen trying to figure out that corner, and we just couldn't. They backed out eventually. It wasn't a financial driven thing. It was a CDOT easement that precluded them from putting the drive-through where they need to, or the overlay district, which put their parking and their drive-through lanes in conflict. We worked 7 or 8 prototypes with them with their corporate office and couldn't get there. Then we hit traffic impact study issues with that as well. And there's just not enough traffic access regionally right there for us to put any high demand use. If I could carve this up and sell it, we could be done.
yeah.
But we want to build something nice here that actually fits. This is about the only thing that fits all these limiting factors we got left.
I appreciate you adding that. I think that's really good information for context, because
yeah,
you could, you would, and that means another developer probably can't either.
So. We did. I feel like we gave it an earnest attempt. I mean, we've been toying with this for a long time. We've tried a lot of iterations of different things, from self-storage up to paired homes, up to a million things. Me and Kurt Freeze argued for 10 years about all this stuff back in the day. We just couldn't get a user that had a prototype that fit. And then the neighbors were upset about that too. They never really, the initial vision for this whole neighborhood was kind of a retirement home community back in the early 2000s. And that just didn't bear out in the market. So I think that's why some of the off-site regional area doesn't reflect heavy commercial. It just doesn't fit for it real well.
Now, I was going to say, I did actually do some simple math here to give you some numbers. So that small commercial section, and they used a small retail plaza as their traffic generator. It generates 17% of the traffic, and it is generating about 18 trips per, let's see, the 3,700 feet are generating 18 trips, and then all of the rest of the units are generating 6 trips a day. So that commercial space generates 3 times more per area than a whole residential unit. So that's, and then when you add all that, one of the issues that their traffic engineer runs into is the eastbound left turn in Meadowlark. If more traffic gets added to this spot, CDOT requires 2 left turn lanes at that intersection, and the right-of-way currently doesn't support that, so they would have to acquire right-of-way south of Highway 56 to widen it to accommodate that turn lane. And then it would also shrink their usable area on Meadowlark because they would then have to add an additional lane going northbound. So that's kind of a lot of the challenge, is that if you create more traffic, it's going to create some major off-site infrastructure requirements.
What is the history in regards to how Mountain Avenue is going to change in that section with Legacy Park coming in? Because I feel like it already is very thin and already kind of should be developed into a wider road. Is there any thought to widening that with the West Side Crossing and Legacy Park?
Yep. So at West Side Crossing, it is what it is. On the south side, there would be a right turn lane added at Meadowlark, and then there would be Mountain Avenue would get widened to the south across the entire frontage of Legacy Park, including right turn lanes into the developments. The Bertha Parkway intersection and the Long Range will get major improvements. It will require separating the left turn and the straights and the 3 lanes, which will be that's kind of the one thing that's holding that intersection up, really. But it'll have turn lanes everywhere, and let's see. Legacy Park is proposing a signal at Gateway Park Boulevard right now, and they're working with CDOT on that. And that would, their argument for that one is it provides a safe crossing for all these residents to a larger commercial area. Even though the timing and everyone loves going through a main street that has 20 traffic signals, it does provide safe crossings for pedestrians and bicycle users. So that could be in the future. But as far as additional lanes, it's going to be 2 through lanes, a median, which will allow left turn lanes. So the left turning people will be able to get off the main through lanes. And then typically most of these areas will have an additional right turn lane going on. That's the ultimate goal of this section.
Is our development review engineer manager, right, for the community? A great title. You know, we rely on you as the independent expert, I believe, for whether the roadway systems have the right capacity to support the project. Have you looked at this? Do you believe that additional commercial could be, has it been studied? I mean, this is a neighborhood master plan, so I know we don't have our full traffic studies at this point. It comes with the next one, but obviously this has been looked at a lot of different ways. Is there capacity to add additional commercial in your mind relative to the roadway infrastructure that we have out there now and or we expect to see in the relatively near future?
I mean, I would certainly say so, but it would rearrange the layout of the site. Obviously, they couldn't fit all the parking required of commercial for the current layout, and then it would be a much smaller area of commercial than the residential building, so it might be a fairly small building and the rest is a parking lot and empty space because nothing else can be supported. And then at that point, it probably doesn't pencil out for the developer to come in and make all the required improvements for that additional all the additional traffic infrastructure that would be required to support the large amount of, say we got a similar amount of traffic to the current development, but it's all commercial. It's still going to be a small commercial area, but they'd still have to provide the exact same traffic improvements they're showing here, including that right turn lane, including widening Mountain Avenue, including a detention pond and storm sewer and all that stuff. So I think it's just a matter of you can't attract a big enough commercial spot that would pay for all of that. So from a development perspective, it's kind of a just a difficult spot. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I understand that, but I don't want to be in a situation where the message is there's nothing else we can do with that. So you have to accept as it is because we cannot do anything else. And I think it's a little bit short as an explanation.
Do we want to start moving through the criteria and seeing if we have a consensus on the path forward? Okay. So, as always, this commission looks at the criteria established in the code for whether we recommend approval or denial of a neighborhood master plan. And if I could ask you to put the criteria up, thank you very much. The first one I'll just read for the record. The land use mix within the project conforms to Berthoud zoning district map and comprehensive plan preferred land use map and furthers the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Commissioners, do we feel it meets this standard? Anybody want to start?
I am so sorry, but I don't think it does. I feel like there's wiggle room to like shove it in there, but I don't feel like it does.
I probably agree.
I think it does.
Commissioner Hoffman?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So we kind of have a split. I think it does. I mean, I think it's the reality of the sites, the constraints on the site are such that I guess I'm not sure that there's a way to meet it the way, the practical side of this, I think it meets the intent, even though it is a guiding document. So it would have been my thought that it does. But we obviously have two commissioners that feel like it doesn't. We have two of us that feel like it likely does, and one who's not quite sure. So let's go ahead on to the next one. Anybody have anything they want to add on number one? Okay. Number two, the neighborhood master plan represents a functional system of land use and is consistent with the rationale and criteria set forth in this chapter, the town comprehensive plan, and the parks and open space recreation port plan as amended. Anybody with thoughts on whether it meets that? So we have one, I'm saying it so we have it on the record.
Oh, yeah,
Commissioner.
sorry.
You
I'll say it louder.
You believe it does
I
meet
do.
it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It definitely shows functionality, and it's got the outdoor space. That's great.
I would agree.
You would agree? How about
Yes.
on this side? Yes, yes. All right, we have consensus there. Number three, the preliminary traffic, open space, park utility, and pedestrian design is adequate and functional given the existing and planned capacities of each system, and it meets the standards found in this code. I'm going to look left, not that
I would agree.
You would agree? Okay, good. I'll look right.
I agree.
We have yes, yes. How about
Yes.
yes? Commissioner Hoffman?
Yeah.
Okay. Consensus there. Number four, negative impacts on adjacent land uses have been identified and satisfactorily mitigated. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Number five, there is a need or a desirability within the community for this development, and the development will help achieve a balance of land use and or housing types within Berthoud according to the town goals.
I don't
Commissioner
think
Hoffman,
so.
it looks, I'm seeing a no. Okay. Commissioner Pond,
Yes, and with a comment.
please.
We spent a year and a half talking about affordable housing in this town, and I think that this kind of project is exactly what the results of that study showed, that housing is so expensive in this town, and everybody is for housing that's more affordable, but once it gets presented, then all of a sudden we don't want it in this town. So I think that it meets the diversity of housing needs that we have in this town, and I am a yes there.
Thoughts on?
I would say I agree with you. However, not in this location. In terms of needing the diversity,
Yeah.
you know, all of that, yes. But I don't feel like it meets the balance that we need in terms of commercial and supporting the town in regards to not having to drive to Loveland and Longmont for absolutely everything.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I agree on the housing aspect of it. And it says and or, so I'm gonna be kind on this one and say yes. But I think, you know, obviously my prior remarks are not super keen on the land use mix.
I would be a yes on that one. Again, I think it is a housing type that we don't have much of in the community. So I think it is meeting it's meeting a need and a goal that our adopted housing plan suggests that we need. Okay, with that, we do not have consensus, I think, amongst our members, but we do need to, I would refer you, and then we can go down, depending on what happens on this, rise or fall, we obviously will need a second motion on the rezoning, but let me ask the commission, I'll pause and say, would you guys like to, before we entertain any motions, do we want to go through the criteria for rezoning and then take motions as a whole? Okay, so
Could you reiterate what the guidelines say about these 5 criteria, that they have to meet all of them, or
yeah, thank you, great question.
how that works?
So, Madam Chair, yes, per code, all 5 must be met in order to recommend approval.
For the neighborhood master plan.
For the neighborhood master plan, yes, zoning is different. Zoning is one of the 5.
Okay.
Yes.
So as we turn the page on the rezoning, there are only 1 criteria. Thank you for clarifying that. I think staff's report, if I'm not incorrect, suggests that staff believes this meets criteria 2, which is to rezone an area or to extend the boundary of an existing district because of a change or change conditions in a particular area of town. Is that correct? That was staff's.
Oh, yes, that's correct.
We only have to find one of these. I think typically the Plan Commission looks at each of them individually for a few moments just to determine, you know, they can meet more than one, it just has to meet one. So the first one is to correct a manifest error in an ordinance establishing the zoning for a specific property. Anybody believe it fits that?
No.
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 Okay, we got a no there. Number 2, I just read to rezone an area or extend the boundary of an existing district because of a change or changing conditions in a particular area of the town generally.
One second.
I'm struggling to see. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I mean, I'm struggling, I guess, to see this in regards to the request for the zoning of C1, because a part of me goes, I could pick one of these if it was a different zone, and then the residential would fit. All of those different pieces together, I'm struggling in terms of picking one of these, because I could see number 5. Not to jump ahead, but I'm just saying,
Yep,
right?
please.
Because then I'm going, oh, well, if we changed it, you know, if we changed the intent of that area to residential, then I could see rezoning it. It wouldn't be C1, it would be something different. But then the residential piece would make sense, the apartments would make sense, the smaller commercial, you know, would make sense. So if it's for C1 specifically, not thinking about what they're going to put on the land, just C1, we're just rezoning it C1,
Yeah.
project aside, then I would say yes to number 2.
Can I ask a clarifying question of the staff and I guess Ms. Hildebrand? Am I thinking about this wrong? I think it's yes, but in the sense of the fact that the change that has happened is that PUD is no longer within the development code, and so that's what necessitates the zoning change.
That's correct. That is staff's
Am I-
position, is that PUD zone district is no longer supported.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Can I ask a question of staff?
Of course.
Why do you think they went from PUD to C1 as opposed to some other designation that implied more residential?
So again, after conversations with staff, so we're looking primarily initially at the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. So the suburban business character district, which is this area on that future land use map. When you look at the comprehensive plan then lists out the relevant zone districts that fall within the umbrella of the suburban business character district. So in the comprehensive plan, that is C1, C2, and our newer zone district, which is suburban commercial zone districts. Those are the three that are relevant to that suburban character district. So R1, R2, R4 is not generally, per the comprehensive plan, a relevant zone district. So an R4 would be your mixed or multifamily. But that wouldn't be consistent then with the comprehensive plan. And mixed use, the actual definition of a land use, mixed use, on our land use tables is permitted within the C1 zone district. So again, it's looking at all those components to determine what is the appropriate zone district, then looking at adjacent properties as well, and understanding too the dynamics of the current PUD and the areas that will remain under the PUD, looking at West Side Crossing. So you look at that, start with the comprehensive plan, and then work out from there.
Does the code or the plan give any guidance on, because I think people are struggling with the ratio, right? The percentage of commercial versus the percentage of residential. Is there any information staff could give us that's guiding language within those documents to sort of say what that ratio should be?
And that is a fair struggle because staff too is presented with that same struggle because no, the comprehensive plan does not define a specific quantity or percentage. And so it's just simply looking at the language and then deducing from there, again, and through staff's own evaluation, preferably, but you all may then read it and come to a different conclusion is that maybe your wording would be it's required, not necessarily preferred. So, but yes, to answer your question, there are no defined percentages as to what should be commercial and what could be residential.
So it's not quantitative, it's qualitative.
Correct.
And it's at our discretion or not.
Yes, as planning
Okay.
commission, that is your decision as a body to determine what through that language and how it's written, what you would interpret it to mean.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
May I ask a point of clarification question as well? So within the suburban commercial district, are those limited truly to just single family or townhomes? Because those two were listed in that description. So I'm wondering, is it exclusive of everything else?
So bear with me. I have my code open, so give me 2 seconds to get to that. So you're meaning what uses essentially would be permitted when it comes to residential within the suburban commercial zone district?
Yeah, like the intent of it
Yeah.
versus C1. Because I'm wondering if it's just apartments, and that's kind of the thing. We want it to be apartments, so then we put it into mixed use, therefore it has to be C1, versus we actually want residential, but maybe we do townhomes, and then it's more suburban.
Yeah, in C1, SC, suburban commercial, townhomes, multifamily, apartment, condominium, and multifamily is defined as 3 or more units are permitted within this SC zone district under our current code. And if you'd like, I can find we have intent statements for each of our different zone districts. And I'm still adjusting to, so the intent of the suburban residential as well as the suburban commercial district is to provide for neighborhoods with primarily single-family detached and single-family attached townhomes, paired homes, residential structures, as well as limited commercial uses. So I would say suburban residential would be limited to commercial, just by definition, and then suburban commercial, you may see just a slightly more commercial, if that helps. And when you do compare suburban commercial with then C1 and C2, there is a distinction. There are some things that are allowed in C1 that are not allowed in SC.
So would the development as proposed fit within suburban commercial and then still be consistent with the comprehensive plan? The suburban commercial is one of the uses of the comprehensive plan.
Yes, I believe that yes, if they chose suburban commercial. Sorry, bear with me, I'm getting there. Suburban commercial does allow mixed use as well. Yes, and so yes, I believe suburban commercial would also, an initial review, would meet the intent of the development or the comprehensive plan and the future land use map.
Is it the zoning that would have to happen first, and then the neighborhood master plan? Which one is in front of the other one?
So for clarification, it would be the neighborhood master plan first.
Is first.
Correct.
So if that doesn't pass,
Then you don't need to consider
then-
the rezone.
okay.
So we wouldn't, okay, so we would only do the rezoning with the neighborhood master plan. Even though PUDs are no longer allowed, they would just go to a rezoning independent and then come back with a
Correct.
different neighborhood master. Thank you. Great question.
So I have a question. I'm probably coming back a little bit, but do we know the total square footage of all the apartments? Do we know how much it represents?
So I will have the applicant address
So
that
just to make a
question.
comparison between what's going to be residential and what's going to be commercial.
And they would be better suited, the applicant, to address that question.
Can you repeat and clarify the question?
Okay, so you're going to have residential apartments, okay? 150, if I remember. How many square footage does it represent in total?
I see. So the total development, it has an FAR, floor area ratio, of 0.6 or 60% of the site. So the entire development as proposed currently is about 172,500 square feet total. And then 3,700 of that would be commercial and the rest residential.
Okay,
Currently.
so yeah, so the residential, if I do the math quickly, it's less than 2%.
Commercially.
The
Commercial,
yeah.
less than 2%.
By square foot, correct.
Is there a reason why you didn't look for suburban commercial? Or why did you choose C1? It made more sense
Yeah,
with what you're doing.
We were kind of leaning on staff recommendation on the code. It was changing and evolving. We've been through several variations of code on this, and it seemed to be the best fit for what our vision was of the layout.
Okay.
It seemed to align well, so
Okay.
and it fit within that comprehensive plan. There wasn't a whole lot of magic to that.
So what is the consensus of the commission? Do we feel that the proposed rezoning meets criteria number 2?
I think it's possible to do more than 2%.
We're on rezoning, right? Number 2?
We're on rezoning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
To me, it depends whether or not the first part gets passed.
I'm in the same boat that if the first part doesn't pass.
Okay. Do we want to stop the review of the rezoning criteria, and I'll entertain a motion on the neighborhood master plan? there's more comments or discussion,
I
I
just have a
welcome
quick-
them. I just,
Point of clarification with staff. So when we went over criteria 1, so the zoning district map, for the zoning district, are we referring to C1 or are we referring to the suburban business? Which, tell me exactly where that's pointing. Remind me.
Yes, you would need to look at it from the perspective of the proposed zone district
Of C1.
of C1.
Okay.
Correct.
and just a reminder, as we are contemplating a motion for the Tundra Flats Neighborhood Master Plan, we need to, as staff has clarified, as a committee, believe that it meets all 5 criteria here.
Yeah, and where are we on your counts?
They're split, so I think somebody has to make a motion that they think is either a motion for approval, a motion to deny, and we will do a roll call vote. Is that correct? Looking at the town attorney. So, again, I mean, if you heard the discussion, there's consensus, I think, on 2, 3, and 4. Everybody agrees. I think on number 1 and number 5, the commission is split. I think on
Yeah.
number 5, there's less of a split than on number 1, but
Yeah. Well, here is the fact. I totally understand what you say, David. You know, and I respect that about having different type of housing in the town. On the other side, I think that 2% for commercial at that specific place in the town is not enough. That's my point of view. So I say no for the first one.
and you were a maybe, so if you were looking for counts, we had 2 no's, 2 yeses, and a maybe, and now we, the kind of group here would make 3 no's and 2 yeses, so. We obviously act on the plan that's before us, and we look at these 5 criteria, so I don't want to cut your comment or deliberation short. If anybody has any more questions for either the applicant or staff, I welcome them. Otherwise, I would look to one of you to make a motion. Staff has provided us both suggested motions, one for approval and one for denial.
Could I, I'm curious why because I haven't lived in this town that long, 5 years, but I'm curious why that particular area of town, it's an infill project, and does the town in general just feel, is the history of this town such that they just want more commercial stuff, and so residential, that's the last lot
Yeah.
before.
Well, there's housing development everywhere in the
Okay.
town. You know that.
So it's too heavy of housing mix is what you're saying.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's the vibe of the,
Yeah.
okay.
And that specific place in the town, I mean, it's close to the 287.
Right,
I think I mean, again, I'm not saying no, but I'm saying it's possible to make an effort and come with another plan that shows a little bit more commercial. Because at that specific, I mean, we don't have that many places where we can develop that. And if we want to have, plus we have the Westland commercial,
West Side Crossing.
West Side Crossing commercial, and then so it would be nice to have like a continuation. On the east side, you have the Gateway Park, and then you're going to have other apartments, but then access to the Arboretum. So I would love to see something that is not West Side Crossing, and then apartments, and then a park, and maybe the Arboretum. Again, I think it's possible to make an effort to increase these 2%.
And just to clarify, Commissioner Hoffman, your thoughts on this are based on the adopted comprehensive plan and code. I mean, that's
And in a way, the reason why we
your
are here,
interpretation of those, I guess.
the reason why we are here is to give an opinion, an advice or on what we are going to do with the space we have, in that case, in the town. And my opinion is this one. I'm not saying no to the project. I'm saying it's possible to do better.
I was just going to say, from like a business owner's perspective, in town, you can have so much residential housing, but if we don't have sales tax or reasons for people to stay in Berthoud, we become just a bedroom community.
Correct, yes.
And that's what we are turning into, because a lot of people moving into Berthoud are moving actually from Loveland, Fort Collins, Lafayette, Louisville, actually from nearby cities that are already familiar with Loveland and Longmont. And so they're not changing their purchasing behaviors, but we're also not providing them with what they need to purchase here in Loveland, or here in Berthoud, excuse me. So a part of it too is we can increase the residency, we can increase the variety of residencies, but then what is going to be happening to the town from a financial perspective in terms of sales tax supporting the residents? And to me, that's the balance piece that comes in, right? Like, are we bringing in the commercial at the same speed that we're bringing in the neighborhood, while also taking a look at this subjectively with what the town wants, which is to keep it a small town feel. They're not a fan of big boxes. They want the small boutiques. They want the small stores. They want to be able to walk around like in a historic downtown. You know, so then do we say, well, then do you just create a sidewalk that goes from 287 to First Street, which is only 1.1 miles, and there's kids riding their bikes all over town in a somewhat unsafe environment because we don't have the best biking structure. So to me, that balance of how do you grow residencies, you know, in a variety of them, but making sure that we have the stuff to keep people in town. Some people are like, oh, I don't keep them in town, let them go. You know, we just want to have a bedroom community, but that concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been here 2 years and a few months. I would love to make the count of new houses or apartments that are going to be built based on what we approved for the last 2 years and my tenure. It's probably 2,000 or 3,000, I don't know. The total houses that's going to be built on the different projects. I mean, Fecal Park 3, all these other, I don't know, probably you have the number 3, Anne, or so, and plus, the new development south over there. It's going to be a lot of houses. We don't have many places where we can develop commercial, and I think it's so we need to think about making sure that we use the land the best we can for also that part of the town. Once it's done, we cannot turn back. You know, we cannot say, "Oh, we should have done that." So
I respect that we have a difference here.
yeah,
I specifically remember, and maybe the attorney can comment on this, but I just got the impression that for the planning commission, it was guideline oriented, and for the town board, it was much more politics and opinions. And so what I remember most was, because my opinions probably aren't very good, so I don't want to.
No, they are.
I'm not a planner,
no,
and so the master plan for what's the 2021?
The comprehensive.
The comprehensive plan is what I thought our guidelines were, as opposed to what I think or you or the next person or whatever would like for the town, that the comprehensive plan represents what the voters of this town wanted, or surveys and such. Can you guys comment on that?
Sure. So both the Planning Commission and the Town Board of Trustees should be relying upon the review criteria that is in our land use code. Part of that review criteria for this particular case, because it falls under the old review criteria, states that how does it further the goals and the policies of the comprehensive plan? It doesn't say you must follow it 100%. It's saying furthering the goals and the policies.
Okay.
So staff takes a look at the criteria for approval for any application and makes a call based on the facts presented for evaluation, the traffic impact study, drainage constraints or opportunities, all of the factors that make an application. Staff takes that information, input from the referral agencies, to look at look at the project from that global perspective. Will it work? And then staff also looks at that criteria for approval to determine, based on the facts that are presented from lots of hands looking at the application, will it work based on the applicant's presentation? And then staff forms their review into the staff report, taking in all of those inputs. Sometimes we're receiving 20, 30 inputs from different referral agencies for each independent review, and we're balancing and scrubbing through that to determine, will what is proposed work on the site and fit within the criteria for approval? So we then present that information for you all to review as well. You don't have access to the months and the years spent, working on this, and that's your role. So everybody, staff, the applicant, the town trustees, and planning commission are required to be reviewing applications with the criteria for approval. And from a legal standpoint, I don't know if you wanted to jump in with anything there as well.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I think Anne explained it well. And I think the chair has mentioned multiple times, which I really appreciate, sticking to the criteria you have in front of you. This discussion thus far seems to really be a lot about land use mix, residential versus commercial. I see that in criterion one. So I see the land use mix within the project and then conforms over to the zone district map and comprehensive plan. That's kind of your guys' role to decide if it does. I think the conversation is the correct topic about the land use mix, but I can't legally speak and put my thumb on the scale if it conforms or not. That's really your guys' decision to make.
Yeah. And I understand what you say, David, but in a way you say that we are here just to say yes to all the boxes. If it's the case, I'm not coming anymore.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Right.
So I'm here because I thought that my opinion could matter, and I come here not with negative intents. I just want to think about what's the best decision for the future of the town, and my opinion is what I expressed. So because if it's just to say yes to all the boxes, sorry, without me, I have better things to do on a Thursday evening. Well, I'll find it.
Please.
And if I can make a statement, Planning Commission, you can deny the request, and then the applicant then has the option of withdrawing the application, taking a look at what you said, resubmitting, or they can proceed forward to the town board of trustees. And at that point, staff is no longer representing what we have represented to you as our opinion. Staff then represents your opinion. So when you're making your motion, you need to be making the motion that's based on code for your rationale for denial, or your whatever rationale you're making that might be different, because the reason why this is blank is we can't read your mind if you should choose to vote against staff's recommendation of approval. So whatever you're going to say, if it's approval or denial, staff then moves that forward to the town trustees should the applicant wish to go that way. So,
And I guess I'm going to ask just so that we're clear here as a group. Commissioner Hoffman, I respect and understand. Well, respect and understand everybody's opinion tonight. I think it's been a wonderful discussion, and I really appreciate the different insights. I don't think any of us want to sit here and just say, well, if it checks all the boxes, then we have to say yes. But our job is to not bring at least my interpretation, and I'm going to kind of look to staff and the attorney. It's not a matter of what Stacy Sigmund wants. I assume that what this community wants is what's adopted. So we have a plan, we have a land use map, and we have a code. That's our role, is to determine whether we believe it meets those criteria. Whether I like the adopted plan is immaterial, because Stacy may not like a certain section of the plan, but that's where I don't think I have the flexibility to vote against it. If the comprehensive plan were to say, I don't know, this should be a water park, and I just don't like water parks, I can't just say I'm going to vote against it because of that. So I want to make sure that we're clear. It's not that your opinion. I think what we do here, though, is interpret these plans and codes. And our role is to say, do we feel the development proposal before us tonight meets the zoning map and the comprehensive plan and furthers those goals? And if the answer is we do not believe it does, or we don't believe it meets any of these standards, then the motion that ought to be set forth is for the denial. If we believe the plan that's presented meets these 5 criteria, then the recommendation needs to be for approval. So I don't know if I'm trying to clarify that a little bit. I just want to make sure that our personal preferences for what we want to see where, it's a matter of our interpretation of the official adopted plans, not necessarily our personal preferences.
Okay, well, I understand what you say, but if you don't want to include the human factor in this discussion, then, I say yes to everything and it's fine. We are here for that. That's the spirit of this commission, having people giving their opinion. So what you say is fine, but if you say, Mark, no, look, then I'm fine. Okay. But you don't see me the next time.
Yeah, I guess we have a legal, that's why I was looking for the attorney. We have a legal role that Plan Commission serves, and maybe that's the explanation, because it may or may not fit, Mark, with what you want to do here, and I'm not going to try to interpret that. I'll ask the attorney to do that.
You guys need to lean on the criteria in front of you, but it is your interpretation of the criteria that are in front of you. Mm-hmm. So if it's couched in your, let's take your water park example. If you say, I just don't like water parks, you say no, but it has to, it's a zone district that only supports water parks. That's a little silly. But if we're discussing, things that fall within these criteria, then I think it makes sense to have a robust discussion kind of like we've had here, as long as that interpretation is alwa't couched in what exists in the code as it stands right now. That's the guiding principle.
And again, I'm not saying no. I'm saying I'm not in favor of what is presented today in front of me.
Because you don't think it meets the plans that the town's adopted.
Yeah.
That's all I just want to clarify. Yes. And I don't think you're alone in other commission members, but I'm not pushing again. Any final comments or questions before one of you puts forth a motion?
I just think for me, so I think for the criteria, I think 2 through 5 is all a yes. I think 1 is half, and I'm on the fence. I think it absolutely meets the zoning district map. Where I'm struggling is when you look at the comprehensive plan land use map, and I know that this comprehensive plan is a guiding document, but the guiding principle, the spirit of the guiding principle, it's tough to say that it meets that. But it's not, there's no measurable, like we talked about, is there a percentage or anything like that? There's not.
That's the problem,
So one could definitely argue, which I think some people are, that that one commercial space meets it, right? And the thing I'm struggling with is it's very soft in meeting the guiding principles, but what's making me be on the fence about this is the fact that that property is just hard to do anything with. So it may be the case where it may be barely meeting this criteria, and that may have to be good enough because there's no other better options for this. Even though I agree with your personal opinions on that, we should have had more commercial. I'm really struggling. Well, as you said, you would have done that then. and that's where I'm really struggling with. So I would say a part of me says we should vote and we should kick this up to the trustees and let them deal with this. Well, because they're elected representatives of the
I
town,
agree.
and their personal opinion, that deciding on how you're going to decide on this, I think, is better suited at that level. And so one way or the other, I think we just vote. But that's really where I'm struggling with. I think it on the surface does not seem to meet the guiding principles, and not because it's my opinion that I don't want apartments. Like, I think it's great. I think it's hard fitting it in this box. But we may be never able to get the box filled. It sounds like, and that's where I'm struggling. Which is probably what you guys struggle with too at the staff level.
Like, let's just put something there.
So
please.
yeah, I think we should just vote.
When again, I want to encourage, before we take a motion, I would urge you to make a motion based on if you believe this development proposal before us meets this criteria. If you do, your motion ought to be a motion to approve. We'll see if we get a second. We'll know where that votes. If you don't think it does, then I entertain a motion for denial and your outline of why you feel it doesn't fit into these, and then we'll take that vote.
Okay, but can we? Would it be possible to approve with conditions
What kind of condition?
on the percentage of commercial? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not.
Yeah. The application is really what's in front of you. Yeah. You are always welcome to add conditions. I would ask the conditions be objective. It would probably be good to quickly discuss whatever conditions you want with the applicant so that you don't set them up for failure at the board level. And I think I would add that yes. So the answer is yes. You can add conditions. That condition should be objective. And that condition may warrant a quick discussion with the applicant just to hear what they have to say about it.
Just to clarify, if we get a motion and that motion fails, we can entertain a different motion.
No.
Or no.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, because you're voting to deny and then it fails, and then I would really. It sounds like we have at least one person who would vote a motion to approve. I would recommend that person make the motion to approve. I don't necessarily want to get into a denial lost. So does that mean we have an approval? Because then you're just doing the same vote twice. So I would recommend that if there's someone who feels strongly in favor of this, they make the motion for
Approve,
approval.
and we see if it passes.
And exactly.
And if it doesn't, it denies them.
And then it's denied.
Okay.
May I
Thank you.
just ask a clarifying question actually on that?
Yeah.
Just for future reference on the Planning Commission. In my experience in these scenarios is that you always make a motion in the affirmative
Yes.
for that very reason. And so moving forward, that should truly be the structure rather than the denial statement.
Okay. Yeah. Just because there were two motions here, I wanted to clarify if you wanted.
And this is great clarification, I think, for staff when we're making our motion sheets. That maybe moving forward, we simply make a motion in affirmative, and then from there, that's how you vote.
Yeah. And not to get into like a parliamentary discussion, but yes, we can kind of handle that case by case. But typically, the motion should be in the affirmative, and then it should lose to be a denial. That's typical.
Thank you.
With that, is there a commission member that would like to make a motion?
Yes. I move to make a recommendation to the town trustees to approve the request for a neighborhood master plan. Am I on the right one here?
Yep.
Staff's recommendation is based on findings outlined in the staff report and deliberated that the criteria for approval found in section 30-6-106 of the municipal code have been met as outlined in the staff report.
Do I have a second to that motion? The motion fails for lack of a second, is that correct, Attorney? So we will, just to clarify, if somebody were to second the motion, they don't have to vote for the, you could still second the motion to allow it to go to a vote on the floor without, so you could vote, you could second the motion and then there will be a roll call vote on the actual motion. So would
I'll
anybody like?
second it.
Okay, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. Can I ask staff to call the roll, please?
Commissioner Taratsas?
No.
Commissioner Pond?
Yes.
Commissioner Butis?
No.
Commissioner Hoffmans?
No.
Chair Sigmund?
Yes. Okay, the motion fails. At that point, then, we do not, to clarify, we do not need to entertain a motion on the rezoning, because that,
Can't do one without the other.
you can't do one, we do not do one without the other, correct? Okay. With that, then, we close the public meeting on the Tundra Flats rezoning and neighborhood master plan. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would say, can I just add one thing? Thank you for coming, and I would encourage you to continue
Yeah.
Yes.
to work to make something happen here, so.
Yes.
Backup plan's a conservation easement.
Right. Okay, so that's the only action item we had tonight. The next item on our agenda is a work session where we have an informational update on the town-wide intersection traffic model. We have Luke Sieber, who I've already introduced as our Development Review Engineer Manager. I'm tending to you titles. We have some new people on the commissions. I want to make sure everybody knows who you are, Luke. So if you would give us that update. Oh, sorry. We're going to take, can we do a 5-minute bathroom break? I have a request.
Oh, you're gonna go get some.
I'll get more water.
Oh.
No, I like.
No, it's good.
I think
We have been discussing.
very rarely sort of knows that I feel like our
No,
board is
good.
together.
I'm just happy
I'm
to
very,
see that.
I'm very rarely sort of a no. I mean, it was, when you look at the criteria.
There is, in the fridge. And there's other things if you like iced tea or bubble waters or.
Bad day for the babies to wake me up at 4 in the morning.
Oh, how old are your babies?
They'll turn 1 in about 2 weeks.
Well, that's, and you have twins, babies,
Babies and a 5-year-old girl.
and you look so normal. That's a lot.
They've started sleeping more so
I have to tell you, the worst part of having children in my mind was the I need a lot of sleep and interrupted. I used to say when the babies were first born that like 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, and 2 hours does not equal 8 hours of sleep. Like you need that uninterrupted sleep and yeah. Well, then they get the next. Yeah, it does get better. Yeah, then they get the monsters and they're afraid, and then, but it's all worth it. They come through it.
very busy, tough year at home.
Wow. Thank you for all you're doing here while you're dealing with all that at home too. That's a big
Give you
challenge.
guys an update at some point. They do withdraw or they do go to hearings. So, no. I have no. I did my job. You did yours. We're good. We're good.
And before
We're almost all back.
before, they're not on? Good. So just before, when everybody comes, is everybody here? Staff doesn't take anything
off to Luke, who's going to tell us all about traffic modeling, which I personally find really exciting. And I actually
I'm
use
sure
it.
pretty
I think
interesting.
I read the traffic studies on the bigger reports, and I'm kind of a traffic geek, so.
Well, hopefully this will be entertaining. I'll try to keep it fairly brief.
It's going to be hard to attract our attention, I can tell you.
There's not a bunch of spreadsheets or anything, so I apologize for that. But yeah, so I just wanted to come in tonight because earlier this month our consultant Fair and Peers finished creating a traffic model for the town's use and also a report showing their findings with the report. And then so I'll just pop in here. We got it showing up there. Just do a quick agenda, introduction, purpose, the kind of where the model area was created, kind of the general area, and then a little explanation on the existing and future traffic models that were made for us, and then updates on how the town will probably end up using this going forward. So, to start off, why did we do this? As you all probably know, or most of you, you'll figure out soon as you keep reviewing the traffic studies and whatnot, the traffic studies for developments tend to be in a general area around the development. The bigger the development, the wider the area is, but it doesn't necessarily cover the entire town. And a lot of, say, downtown streets, there aren't any developments near those, so the town really had no way of seeing what happens at 4th Street or 4th and Mountain, or places that have had their studies done 30 years ago and were past their long-range study. Next, we want to use it as an evaluation tool. This would be to help see. It'll help highlight the areas where the town may need to do or plan for improvements in the long range that developers may not be involved in because there aren't any around. And we'll also be able to use the trips from proposed developments to spread them throughout town and see how they affect the intersections that aren't necessarily in their traffic studies. And then also the model can be updated frequently with development reviews that are under review, using their traffic study trip generation numbers and plugging them in. So this map is a general study area. All the red boxes are the intersections that were studied in the model. This includes the GMA for the town and a few areas outside the town that the Fair and Peers recommended just for data. The data sources that were used to generate the model are previous traffic studies from approved developments, a few of the developments that are in review right now. In some areas where traffic data was outdated, say it was older than 5 years, they had a traffic company go out to those intersections and count all the traffic movements at AM and PM peak hours. They used a program called Replica, or a company called Replica, which utilizes, I think, Bluetooth technology to get a general estimate of some intersections that weren't as important to us, but it allowed them to get kind of a guesstimate of some of those intersection traffic movements. And then also the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization has had an existing traffic model that they utilized to kind of jumpstart their model. What you see here is the results of the model for the, and I'll go through a few different scenarios that they built. You can see on the right hand side it talks about level of service, and I can go through those really fast. A being basically no wait time, F being a very, very long unacceptable wait time. There are different criteria for movements and whole intersections. The highlighted areas are the entire intersection rating for level of service. Usually
During peak periods.
during peak periods, yes. Because this is AM. But yeah, so AM and PM, we usually go 7 to 9 AM and 4 to 6 PM trying to catch the rush hour traffic, because that is where you get the majority of your issues show up in traffic. As you know, when you travel or drive around a place at 1 in the afternoon, it's usually a lot smoother than when you're trying to go home from work. So that's just kind of the general idea behind these. But you can see here in the existing traffic, we have a few yellows, we have some orange, but those are actually, D is a pretty acceptable level of intersection. The two highlighted in red to the southwest along 287 are actually
Strange.
they're not strange. They're just people trying to turn left onto 287, going across 287. So that is usually the limiting movement when you're trying to cross the street and go left. But they're also kind of on the edge of our area and not really a developable area for us, so they're not
So
of
you
high
mean
priority.
because people are turning left, it creates a traffic issue
It sure does.
on a
On a 4-lane highway with
Yeah.
a scary median and people speeding all the time, it certainly does.
Okay.
Before you move on real quick, can you
delays. Okay, I didn't know
talk
that.
about the difference between signalized and unsignalized?
Sure.
I'm only confused because those two red dots are not signalized, right?
No.
So they-
Correct. So
We have data for signalized.
it's both. They're both kind of rated the same in terms of.
Sorry if that didn't make sense. My question.
No. So it shows signalized and unsignalized delay, and those numbers are kind of the seconds of wait time for a person to make the movement.
Right.
So the signalized time is allowably. Sorry. It's allowed to be a little longer for the signalized time for a level of service. So you can see for a signalized intersection, between 35 and 55 seconds is a level D.
Oh, that's just the range. Okay.
Yes. Sorry if the greater and less than signs are a little confusing. Yeah. And then 50-second wait time at an unsignalized intersection is an F.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. I understand now.
yep. No, feel free to reach out with any questions. So, moving on to the existing PM traffic, you can see I'll just flip back really fast. You can see there's actually a few more issues, and especially at County Line Road before it started construction, when there was actually an intersection there. The PM traffic seems to be the more heavy traffic time in Berthoud, and we kind of see that throughout the scenarios here. At this time, it appears everything is acceptable except for our main intersections, except the County Line Road intersection, which is currently under construction, and that roundabout will make it acceptable for a long time. And then you can see in the south again on 287, County Road 4E, which is a big left turning movement for people going south.
There's going to be a stoplight over there.
That is the long range plan. CDOT has some interesting thoughts on the corridor, so we're working through that with the Legacy Park developer right now.
Has it changed?
Did I hear you say County Line will eventually be a roundabout?
County
Perhaps.
Line Road and 56 it's under construction to be a large roundabout.
That way now.
Mhm.
I was like, that makes sense. It's something new every day.
So here, just moving on, this is the long range time we did. We did a 20 year from the start of this project, because it started late last year. 2025 to 2045. 20 years is a typical long range traffic study. this map highlights, including most of the developments that are currently under review. There might be a couple that snuck in after we started the model that aren't included. But this includes Legacy Park, Westside Crossing, and it's assuming they're full build out for all of these. And so you can see here, without any improvements that are recommended by those intersections, if the town were to develop without making developers build these improvements, Mountain Avenue becomes a nightmare, 287 becomes a nightmare, Bertha Parkway, it becomes worse. And it's the same with the PM, just worse. You can see the US 287 with this one. Interesting one that's highlighted is, I believe that's Bunyan and First Street, and that is another one where the people going eastbound and turning left really just inhibits that movement, because it's I believe there are not 2 lanes separated. So if there's ever a right turn lane there, that alleviates a lot of this, but that has not happened. Okay. Oops, I did that wrong. So yeah, 2045 AM without improvements, and then the 2045 showing with improvements. And this is with the improvements from those developers that are currently in process.
Question. So obviously the main factor here is population growth and traffic changes, traffic changes. Does that also take into account increased traffic due to the fact that those commercial sites will be developed, or like what factors were involved in those projections?
Yeah, so it assumes not just all the traffic studies that we have, and all the developments assuming full build out. So all of Farmstead 2 has every single house built. All of Westside Crossing has every lot full of its commercial at the maximum capacity of traffic that they studied for. It also includes background traffic growth, because CDOT and the NFRMPO, that metropolitan organization, have kind of generated background traffic growth, assuming everything's going to develop and more population, and we have no way of knowing what that traffic growth outside town is. So these larger organizations use different methods to come up with their growth factors, and that's kind of the main driver for a lot of this, especially along the 287 corridor and that Mountain Avenue intersection, is that traffic is already extremely high, and its growth factor means it kind of exponentially increases, and it is a tough intersection because there isn't much more widening they can do without adding lanes, which they can't do really. So that one, with all the improvements shown, that means adding every single turn lane out there, adding another through lane going east and west, actually. So making it a 4-lane road along 56, and then adding all the turn lanes on 287. It's still kind of hovering in a failure scenario with improvements, according to CDOT's requirements. And I think that might just be something the town has to live with. Well, there is a possible relief valve, but they are.
The map, without improvements.
Oh yeah, the PM without improvements on the long range. That's the one where it's like, whoo. There are a lot of intersections that would fail, and then you can see here it's not as rosy as the AM, but it is still improving a lot of those intersections that were red.
So let me make sure I understand. The dark red means that every vehicle is delayed with 80 seconds per trip.
Not necessarily every vehicle, but certain movements. So in a lot of those red areas, I would expect let's start with 287 and 56, or 287 and Mountain.
Yeah.
That would be the people turning traveling westbound, turning southbound.
Yeah.
They're going to be sitting there for 80 seconds plus.
Yeah, because
But-
there you have a stoplight.
The north
What I
side.
don't
yeah.
understand is the south part. I mean, all the 287 and Country Road 2E and 4E. No, 4E is green, so it's fine. But and that's where, I mean, we're gonna have more delays over there because I take this one all the time. When it's packed, you have delay on the Country Road 4E. But I never see someone being stopped or slowed down on 287 at that place. Well,
It's- No, I mean,
I probably don't understand what it means, but I'm just telling you.
well, and if we go back to the existing, say PM, it's showing maybe a 20 to 35 second or a 15 to 25 second delay. So
Okay.
that's hardly any time.
Okay.
Sitting at an intersection, kind of look both ways, and then you cross. That's
Okay.
10 seconds. So at the current time, it
Uh-huh.
is not an issue. It is when over 20 years that exponential
Okay.
growth from people traveling from Longmont to Loveland for work. That's where the difficulties of those unsignalized intersections kind of get expounded, and that's why 4E, when it gets a traffic signal, will actually improve turning left, and probably more people will start taking 4E to go south to avoid sitting at a stop sign for a long time. Yeah.
But just because they're dark, correct? If it's not a signalized there's no. It's the side roads that the cars are delayed on. It has no delay on 287 in that time. It's just that's how long it takes till you can find a gap in 287 to either go across or make a turn.
Correct. And
Into it or
the level
across
of service is kind of split between the overall intersection, each leg of the intersection, and then also each movement within that intersection. So you have a westbound left there, you have a westbound right there, and then 287 has just north and south. And then I guess off turn lanes, but they don't have to wait for traffic as much. So they are showing up red, but only for kind of the minor streets are what usually control these.
I was going to say, it seems to be that, and this might help to understand the red dots
Okay,
here.
thank you.
You're welcome. It's the left turning.
Yeah.
So when you think about going straight and turning right, that's going to be fast on 287. This one you have to slow down. Maybe you have to watch the cars. but
Never.
It's always, right? It's always that left turn,
Yeah.
right? So for all of these, I think the darker they get, it has to do with that left lane
Okay.
having that bias and creating that longer time compared to the other, either going straight or turning right.
Okay. Thank you.
And then another big intersection that's mainly driven by background traffic and not necessarily any future development is the 287 and Berthoud Parkway intersection, because of that background traffic. The majority of it is people traveling from the south, some from the town, but the majority is coming from south of town, trying to turn left on Berthoud Parkway and go up into Loveland for work or whatever.
Can you quickly go back to the study?
The existing one?
Yeah. I just want to see. I was so focused on the main part of town, I didn't even see the 287 Berthoud.
Yeah, it extends all the way up to 42nd Street or County Road 14, I believe it is.
Okay, thanks. I just want to see 287.
Yeah, I can kind of slowly.
So I guess that
flip
on
through
the
again.
future 12045, I'll give you stop there. So the red dot to the west of county line, and that must be because there's so many people coming through the roundabout. Those people can't turn left out of Farmstead.
I believe that is the Dorothy intersection. Dorothy Drive. Yes. So that because that's a stop controlled intersection, yeah.
That's out of the neighborhood.
Going out of the neighborhood. Yeah, it wouldn't affect anybody traveling east west.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then a kind of surprising thing to me was the roundabouts at I-25 are also shown to start.
That's interesting.
Again, this is actually including the Turion development, which is the very large portion to the east of I-25 that has many thousands of homes and many thousands of square feet of commercial area. So you would expect that corridor to get quite a bit of improvements with that size of development.
Was there is there a proposed improvement?
It's there's a proposed improvement. There was a traffic study. I don't know what the status is. Anne might have a better idea. I think it's kind of just.
Built that thing.
Yep, they have an approved overall development plan, and of course that's associated with the PUD process as well. So when they get ready to do development, they'll have to go through a preliminary plat and a final plat. So they have not done that yet, and it was approved over 20 years ago. They have very long vesting that was written into their annexation and their development agreements. So we actually met with the developers last week or the week prior, just reacquainted, and they are working on water and sanitary sewer provision in that area. And at this point in time, we don't have anything for that.
But we just wanted to include it in here just to kind of see a worst case scenario, what's going to happen. Because, like Ann said, they haven't gone through any traffic. I mean, they might have done a preliminary traffic study, but that's not showing any of the requirements for like recommendations down the line. So I'll move on, and maybe I should have reordered this a little bit. These two pictures show, on the left is the existing Berthoud Parkway intersection. You can kind of see the turning movements in those arrows. And then on the right, you can see the 2045 with improvements showing through lanes, turn lanes in every direction. And that's what, even though the rating for the intersection is the same, in 20 years, it's handling 2 times or more as much traffic as it is today. So it's a way for the town to grow and improve its infrastructure, even though it might not feel like you're moving through as fast. It's still acceptable levels of travel times for these intersections.
Numbers, the number of cars.
Yep. So that, and I didn't write which of AM or PM this was, but so this would be one of those peak hours. Say 98 people are turning left onto Berthoud Parkway in the existing, and in the future 164 people would be turning vehicles, I should say. I mean, vehicles. But, so the program that was used to make this model and that the town acquired is called Cubic Synchro 12. It's the standard traffic model that most of Synchro 12 or 11 are what the traffic engineers use, and their output with all the numbers in the traffic studies is usually from this program, except in some rare cases where, like roundabouts, we were informed, are kind of specialized and they can use a different program. But this can handle roundabouts, but when larger roundabouts and heavier traffic get involved, we'd probably need a consultant or something to make sure those are correct. And usually the traffic studies will use those programs and provide the numbers to us for review. As I said previously, this was built with multiple scenarios pre-modeled: the existing, the 2045, and the just background traffic growth, and then what we planned. So yeah, built with the multiple scenarios, and then the future infrastructure improvements, which could include different lanes, signals, different stop control, different roundabouts, anything that gets added in the development or that the town sees a need for can be modeled in this program. What we'll use it for ongoing is kind of comparing the existing conditions to those future volumes. When a development gets denied, it can get removed from the model and improve an intersection, say, unless something comes in to replace it, or just some new development that we hadn't seen before comes in, we can add it in. And then for the future applications of this model, using it for capital improvement infrastructure is a big one for some of those intersections that aren't near a development but have room to grow and the town can help fund or get grants for. Using it for development review, obviously, because they're in those siloed areas, and we want to see how, when they send someone east on Mountain, how does it affect the rest of our intersections along that road, not just the ones right next to it. It could be used for a new transportation master plan, which could be useful in the future to have a consultant come in and look at all the town's traffic and then recommend the improvements that we should expect down the line, not depending on developers. And then finally, just for additional scenario analyses, if the town wants to look at something that a developer isn't looking at, say we want a roundabout somewhere where there's only a stop sign, we could look into that ourselves or have someone update our model for us and kind of show us what that would do to help improve the traffic going through our town. And I think that is all. So any further questions, if you want me to scroll back and talk about anything, extend
Well,
our
thank you for
meeting
the
time anymore.
It was a good presentation. Thank you.
I think it'll be a great tool to have to both analyze the developments coming in and be a planning resource for our public works team, and I think it'll just be a really good boon for the town going forward.
Awesome.
And if I could jump in and say, Luke he does not have, he's not a traffic engineer. Luke is civil engineer. He's a civil engineer.
Civil.
And so this is added to his plate to do kind of that extra analysis for the town to guide development in a specific way, and to use this, as Luke said, for planning for future improvements and validating what is being communicated to us. And if we need a third-party consultant to come in and help support, definitely we'll get that. However, this was a wonderful tool that Luke led, work with Fair and Peers and led them through this to build something that would be useful for him. So you did a great job.
It was a great job, yeah.
Yeah.
Question, did you take into account that pretty soon you're going to be flying, you know? We're going to have these individual...
That's why traffic
roads.
studies only go 20 years. You never know what could happen.
All right, sorry for the
So-
touch of humor.
For example, let's pretend this water park comes in. So you have the ability to kind of almost instantaneously put it into the system, and then it'll tell you kind of what kind of traffic issues might occur with the number of people that might be coming in. So this is really valuable in regards to not just planning, but the town trustees and the community in regards to if.
Yeah, so it does depend on the info that you put in. So we would need the trips and kind of to estimate where people are coming from and going to from that spot. So that's where I believe, if you're talking about MVP or Richardson Park, I believe they had a traffic study done for that one, which requires certain improvements along Berthoud Parkway. But we would be able to plug in the numbers from that engineer's traffic study into this model and kind of see like, oh yeah, they're showing this because this intersection wouldn't work, or people would be trying to get out of the park and just would have to wait forever. So that's what this model would be used for, to kind of be a somewhat delayed live view of the intersections as we go on. And it probably wouldn't be every single time a development comes through we want to update this, because it takes time, but maybe like a quarterly or semi-annual update of this to reflect the current status of town conditions.
Thank you.
That's what we're envisioning, but it's a new tool, so we'll find out as we go along.
Everybody needs to buy a golf cart.
What?
I said everybody needs to buy a golf cart.
We need
Yeah.
golf cart lanes because they're just going to slow it
Yeah.
down at the intersections.
Or the little motorcycles.
Thank you, Luke. I think it's great. I think this commission's going to really find it helpful as we see development proposals coming forward. love the idea that it gives us a picture much broader than we get when we look at an individual. It helps us see kind of community-wide that impact, which is great.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because it is not what you would think it is. So it's good to have a tool rather than just guessing. Thank you.
There are ways to make a fancy 3D model, but that's a little out of my range. We do have the capacity to do that now, but I think that's something for a very large project that we would have someone else do. But
Okay.
it's not. Right now, it's just an aerial map with a bunch of arrows, so not the most
All right.
exciting thing to look at. So I didn't want to pull it up and zoom in and zoom out and show you basically what I showed you in the spreadsheet or the
Awesome.
PowerPoint. But
All right, the last thing on our agenda tonight is a report from staff. If I could hand that over to you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. So on, let's see, upcoming on June 8th, we'll be working with Historic Preservation Advisory Committee on doing some master planning for the remainder of this year, as well as forecasting what's happening in 2027. Bella, do you want to talk about June 13th?
Sure. We are hosting an in-person historic walking tour to celebrate the implementation of our new online refreshed historic walking tour. So we will be meeting in front of the Little Thompson Valley Pioneer Museum. So that's 224 Mountain, the Bimson Blacksmith Shop, just right over on Mountain at 11 on Saturday, June 13th. There's no RSVP required. You can just come and join us, and we'll take a little walking tour. It's about a half-mile route, so not terribly long, but we'll take a look at some of the historic landmarks that have been landmarked through our program here in town, and some of those that are also on the National Register. There's one or two. So we hope to see you there, and we'll be ending also in front of Cocina y Cantina restaurant, where we've reserved half the patio, and you're welcome to stay and purchase lunch and a drink to talk about all of the wonderful landmarks that you saw on the tour. So we would love if you joined us.
You said 11 o'clock?
Yes.
When is this?
Saturday, June 13th.
Did you want to give an update on the Art Master Plan?
Sure. So, as you all know, our Public Art Master Plan, we had an active public engagement survey that closed on May 15th. We had an amazing turnout, some 141 responses, I do believe. So that's pretty significant. Our goal was 150, and that's a pretty lofty goal. So 141 is pretty stellar. So Night Arts, our consulting team, has compiled those, gave us a summary just this last week, and we kind of went over what those thoughts are being presented. So it was pretty cool to see. So in the next week, I'll be posting some of those results on our Public Art Master Plan webpage so that the community can see what is coming out of that conversation. And from that, they have created a vision statement. We've now gone through two different drafts. So based upon that feedback, they made some slight changes. So it's a really neat statement. So I'll also be sharing that with the community. And they've developed some review criteria for new pieces of art. So all of this is coming out of our community engagement and what we're hearing from our community, which is always a lot of fun to see what comes out of it. And so now they are starting our first draft of the master plan, which is absolutely exciting because we're starting to actually now see results. So that will be forthcoming, and so it's moving along. Ideally, we tentatively have a public hearing scheduled for August, so we're hoping to keep with that timeline. So we'll see how that pans out. We'll keep you posted.
Did you have anything you wanted?
no, I think that model was probably mine.
He went to sleep.
On June 11th, we have a planning commission that evening. Brian Pfister will be present for the first 15 minutes. If you have any IT or tech questions, if you don't, I can tell him don't show up. So if you're good to go with your tablet, maybe I'll just take a hand. Does anybody want Brian to be here for 15 minutes? Do you need him to be here?
I would still like to get the Office apps on here, like to open a PowerPoint with PowerPoint.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be granted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then no, I don't need him.
Yeah, in trouble. I needed Word the other day, and I had to
Never.
email my other
Is
computer.
that a
'cause
Thursday or a Tuesday?
No, it's a Thursday.
Oh, okay.
Do I have the date wrong? 6/11. And that night, we will also be having the attorneys and Sursa will be present. Tammy, again with Sursa, she's the executive director, to talk about planning commission questions that you may have, such as parliamentary procedure, motions, discussions,
Yeah.
anything that you want to talk about. That's your evening to come and make your list of questions, and it's just, we call it open mic night, so that you as planning commissioners can feel more confident in what you're doing and can ask questions and have discussion.
I think that what
So
happened tonight would be a good discussion.
Yeah, we have there's some great conversation points, I think, to have.
Yeah.
And will you be leading that one?
The
Or is
legal
Catherine?
discussion?
Yeah,
I'll be here.
okay, great.
Ask me directly. I have a presentation. Yeah, I have a presentation, but I'm happy to not use it because I don't really like PowerPoint.
So that mainly will be just a work session time that evening. We have no land use hearings that night. We do have more land use hearings coming up in the next several months. Ton and Bella have been, getting people through the process. So
Besides the June 11th, do we have any set dates so we all know to try to, July gets busy for a lot of people. I want to make sure that,
June 25th. Potentially July, sorry.
so the 25th for sure?
Yep, 25th for sure. There will be something. There will be several items on your agenda.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have anything right now for July 9th. However, that could change in the next week or two.
Okay.
Something could happen. And then right now, we have some tentative for the 23rd of July. So nothing right now for the 7th, tentative on the 23rd, definitely on the 25th of June.
Anything else, staff?
No, great discussion right now.
Are you guys planning on something having to come back on Revere as a result of the?
It's really
ballot
up
issue?
to the property owner on,
Okay.
on what they're choosing to do.
Okay.
I just have one comment to say. I think you did a great job tonight for the first time.
I'm trying.
That was-
I'll take all feedback, good and bad. We'll keep, it's a
No, I mean,
work
it was
motion.
not an easy one for the first one, but you managed it pretty well.
Well, thank you. And I do appreciate the good dialogue and a civil, good debate. Everybody giving their opinions. I think it's important. I think that if I'm ever getting after you, I'm trying to preserve the record. I keep looking at the attorney because if we get challenged on something, it's very important that our decision is based off of the adopted codes. That's where we're going to win or lose, correct? And we'll get into that
Yeah,
more next
and-
time. So I'm not trying to circumvent anybody's opinion. I'm trying to get you to frame it in a way that you can be successful with.
And that's the reason why it's nice to have you here
Yeah.
while we have this difficult discussion.
Yeah, and I thought you guys did really excellent tonight. My one feedback is trust your guys' own read of the criteria, read of the things. You don't necessarily need to I'm always here to give advice. But if you feel strongly about a criteria or something not being a criteria and we shouldn't be talking about it, say you shouldn't be talking about it. Or say, I think this is grounded in this criteria and that's why I'm talking about it. I'm here to help, but I don't want to be looked at as the one that's saying, oh, okay, he says it's okay, now we can do that. Because I don't want to be the one that seems like I'm making the decision.
No.
I want to inform your guys.
Yes, correct. And I think you did well. I mean, because the question was, can we have some room for, because as the criteria was not quantitative,
Yeah.
then it's open. So can we have a debate around that one? Anyway, I'm repeating.
No,
myself.
we're still in the meeting, so, which I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
I move to adjourn.
And I second.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
So see you all in 2 weeks. Get your